see men be vulnerable, for them to receive it is for us to really hit a breaking point. We're being vulnerable and we're telling you that we're going through whatever we're going through 9 times before that 10th time happened and you see that man break down and cry. We done told you. You just didn't want to receive it in that way. The only way that y'all received it was in the way when you saw him tear up because you never seen him tear up. So now is when you take it as a serious thing. But if he said, yo, listen, I'm going through a lot right now, I just need space, he's being vulnerable. But then you keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. Now this man is crying and he's saying, I don't know what to do. I can't handle it. People want to see men be vulnerable. Women specifically want to see men be vulnerable. For them to receive it is for us to really hit a breaking point.
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book 91. We're giving you guys a men's panel today. We are talking about, well, how rejection affects men. We wanted to get the men on board, get their points of view, get their experiences and what they've been through, and speak a little bit about the male mindset and how it's affected by rejection. This is for us men to, gather around, talk, share each other's thoughts, and as well just help each other as well, because there are other men out there who want to be able to converse, to talk, and to share their opinions, but sometimes they don't have a safe space. And so we're creating a safe space here for us men to be able to say how we feel and what we go through as well. But before we get there, I want to address, obviously, because that video that we just played there was a really good video talking about vulnerability. It's never easy. Sometimes we do share our vulnerabilities with the opposite sex, and it's not always a safe space. And this also can be for men as well to men. It's not solely just the opposite sex. But I'm saying that because I have a predominantly female audience, and I understand that sometimes, when it comes to men's vulnerability, maybe some of you might not be used to it. Some of you might not have seen much of it. Maybe many of you don't even know many good men. And so this is the first time you've kind of seen this. I just want you guys just to be respectful and just kind of just show, that, you're listening and paying attention. I'm going to keep the men on task. I'm going to keep them focused on talking about their experiences so you can understand the male mind. This is not an attack on women. We don't want to do that here. We don't want to be getting at women either. We want to be able to create a space where you guys get to learn about what's going on in the male mind. How do they think? And we're going to try and do that without it being an attack on any particular gender, but focusing on the experiences of those individual people as well. So, talking about obviously rejection, it's a big topic, especially for men. And many of you, when you probably hear the word rejection, are immediately probably thinking about a man being rejected by a woman. But there are many instances of rejection that do happen, i.e., some of them being even for your workplace, for a promotion for a job. Rejection in terms of you even trying to access new businesses, or trying to get a loan, or trying to achieve new heights, new ambitions, new goals. You can feel some sense of rejection. The simple wording of rejection is the dismissing or refusing of a proposal or an idea. Okay, all right. The refusal or the dismissing of a proposal or an idea. And we go through rejection as men in many different ways. You even suffer this in the workplace, in the office, and if you're somebody who is not even great at being able to be very vocal in your workspace, you can suffer rejection even in your work group. You offer an idea and they shut your idea completely down, or you realize that every time you offer an idea, they shut your idea down. There is many instances of rejection that happen across the board, and many different ways that men experience rejection and how it actually affects us. This is from when you're young to when you're old. And I can give an example. I mean, when I think my very first kind of examples that I remember that was very hurtful for me, the biggest one I felt in terms of rejection, it was being applying for a school. I remember I applied for a school, and the school was an all boys school, but it was right next to my house. You know what I mean? First of all, I'm so glad this rejection happened, because I don't know what I was thinking. Okay, I want to go to school with girls when I was young. I don't know why I was thinking go to school with all boys. You know what I mean? But that's how I was thinking. And there was a school right next to me, right? Sleason College. I remember they used to wear a red blazer. A school right next to me, literally up the road. And I was thinking to myself, how great it would be not to have to travel far. I got a school, a secondary school, a school that's, I guess you guys would be middle school for you guys. That will be right next to my house. In fact, where I stayed in a block of apartments, I can literally see into the playground. Do you know how amazing it would have been on lunchtimes to leave that school and come to my house and eat tutu food and go back? I was thinking about saving lunch money. Listen, I was thinking all sorts of stuff at my young 11-year-old self. And I applied for the school and I didn't get it. They said, sorry, unfortunately, we don't want to, we cannot accept you at this time. Madness. I'm not sure why they rejected me. Still to this day, I'm not sure why they really rejected me. I don't get it. But yeah, they rejected me, right? And I remember I saw the letter, I read it, after my mum handed it to me, said, "You want to read it?" And I remember I broke down crying. 11 years old, because man didn't get into a school. Just deep what's happening here. I'm crying and breaking down because I didn't get into the school that I wanted at that time. Thank God that school was not even the greatest school at all. At 11 years old, right? And I remember my mom was like, "It's okay, like it's okay, like you know, as Africans, it's yeah, don't worry, yeah, don't worry about it, it's okay, it's okay." And I remember I cried into my mom's arms, blood. At 11 years old, I cried into my mom's arms, blood. I'm telling you now, I wept like a baby in those arms, all because I didn't get into a school. That's one of the earliest rejections. I mean, I can think of some earlier ones, but I remember that one. It hit hard. I wanted something, I couldn't get it, right? And this is really important because these also attaches itself to emotions, and I think maybe we can have another discussion another time, and maybe this will be a great discussion for the open panel when we talk about how, in terms of rejection, when it comes to men and women interactions, how that leads to certain emotions because when we talk about being rejected, one of the things emotions that we often feel is frustration, pain, anger. And the reason being is because that anger is a way of saying to us that, you know what, I was unable to meet the goal that I wanted. And thus frustration kicks in because you can't get to where you want to get to. But the reality is, when you emotionally regulate yourself, what do you do with that vibrancy, that energy, those emotions, those pent up feelings? What do you do with it? And so it's so interesting that when I pinpoint that particular moment, that in that season when I felt like I got rejected, literally that was one of the things that I did. I just literally just broke down crying and just wept into my mom's arms at 11 years old. That was it. So there's so many different ways we can talk about rejection, and I'm gonna get the guys coming on. Um, so I'm gonna get the guys coming on as well and get their points of view. First of all, I've got Trey up, so we're gonna get Trey up. Someone asked a good question there. Hi, Vibe. I like that question. Someone said, um, did that experience change your opinion of education? Not necessarily. No. I'll be honest with you, it didn't necessarily change anything in me. It was just a painful experience. Um, and I ended up going to another school, which was just as bad as that school I got rejected from. It was a really bad school, second worst school in the country, I think it was, in terms of grades and stuff like that. So it wasn't flourishing to go to the other school either. But I love that school because I learned so many lessons in terms of dynamics between boys and girls and men and women. So yeah, but no, it didn't necessarily change my opinion of education at all. So good question, high vibe. All right, let me try up one of my first people to come up here. Let me get Trey up. Trey.
Yo, what's up, brother?
What's good, bro? How you doing today?
Ooh, it's been a long day, but as long as we productive, that's all that matters.
That's what I like to hear. Bro, we talking about rejection with from the men's side, and I want to ask you just a general question here, I guess a more open question. When you hear the word rejection, what does your mind what does your mind conjure up? What does your mind think of? What does your mind go to immediately when you hear the word rejection?
Um, Somebody telling you no.
Mm,
usually, which I think for most of us, not just men, but for most of us, it's that first time your parent be like, "Hey, mom, I want that," and you be like, "No, you can't have it." You're like, "Oh, wait, what do you mean I can't have it?" You can't have it, and for whatever reason, why? But as you get older, I think you was saying earlier, there are different types of rejection that you go through. You have to learn to deal with as you get older. So I guess it depends on the situation.
Mm.
Really depends on the situation, what you're dealing with. Because at different ages, you're gonna think differently and feel differently about the type of rejections that you come across. But basically, it comes down to just a no. How do you deal with that no? You know?
I love that. For you then, what would you say is one of your earliest memories of rejection? What's one of your earliest memories of rejection?
Uh,
He ended up freezing. He'll come back. He'll come back. Whilst he's coming back, Johan, welcome to the conversation, bro. Good to have you on board. Good to see you, Cap.
Hey, how's it going, Coach? How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, bro. I'm doing good. I'm living large and I'm feeling good, bro.
That's good. That's good. I like the hat.
Thank you, bro. We're trying out here. We're trying. Question. The first question I'll ask the guys is, what is when you hear the word rejection? What's the first thing that comes to mind? When you hear the word rejection, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Here's Trey's back. I don't know if he wants to get back on his response.
Okay, we'll get Trey. Let him finish his thoughts, and then we'll come back to you. Trey,
Okay.
Trey. He frozen again. Johan, don't worry. Let's go. What's the first
Um,
thoughts, man?
so basically,
Yeah.
when I hear rejection, the younger me will probably jump to the no, and I think even the older me to this day is still thinking about the no. Um, but to be honest, I've done a lot of work within myself that when I get rejection, it's whether two things: it's whether not yet, or it's a redirection somewhere else. So those are the two things that I'm like the way I'm receiving rejection nowadays. But generally, it's like not this way, but it's another way. Um, so that's how I always seen that because, as you know, my background, we always trying to find a way where we're from. So if we get rejection, we're like, well, what's the plan B? What's the plan C? What's the plan until we figure out. So rejection has never been a stop for me. It has always been a redirection of somewhere else to go.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said the internet's always been I mean, sorry, not internet, but the rejection's always been a redirection for you. Has
Yeah.
that always been your thought, though, that rejection has been a redirection for you?
To be honest, man, it has always been because, like I said, I come from based on my background. We always had to figure out. So although you just took an example of like getting into a school. I remember there was this year where essentially I wanted to get into this school because I was playing basketball too back then. But although I was like trying to get into that school with like my own help without using my dad's, I still had like option B, option C, option D. So although it was my first option, when it did not work out, my heart automatically turned into the next options. Because for me, it's like you always have to be prepared. That was the way my dad raised me. He raised me to like always figure out the worst and the best case scenarios in every situation and just like know how to go to the next one. So, so yeah, it has always been like that way for me growing up. But it was frustrating when I was younger, though. I got to admit.
What when you say it was frustrating when you were younger, what was the frustration that you're feeling, and why?
I think when you are younger, you put value in things that don't necessarily have like true meaning of your purpose. So when you are receiving rejection at a younger age, your automatic response is just to do what we know as kids, which is get frustrated, yell, and basically just like have like this one reaction when you're younger, but as you get older, you develop a way to like really regulate your emotion, but you also understand that okay, it's okay, I got rejected here, but I'm always going to have the opportunity to find something else. But it has always been about like crying, being mad, yelling, and all this thing, and being frustrated and creating early trauma that you don't even need to have when you were younger.
I'm hearing that. Thank
Yeah.
you, Han. Good shares on that. Trey,
Yo,
good to see you back, bro. Sorry, I
good day,
forgotten the
good
question I
day.
even asked you. I think you were telling us a little bit of your experience in terms of rejection as well.
Yeah, I think you asked me what was my first real experience of
Yes.
rejection, and I think I was about to give an example. I had to be like, I don't know, 9, 10, somewhere around there, and I wanted to go to some friend's house or whatever, and it was going to be a group of them. A little girl was there that I kind of liked at the time, and for some reason, my mom kept telling me, "No, you can't go over there," and I didn't understand why. Couldn't understand why, but it was much later. Basically, from her eyes, that family had some drama going on, and she was trying to spare me from what was going on over there. I didn't know at the time. I just thought, well, you telling me no? They seem nice or whatever, blah blah blah. You can call that a little mean, but as you got along, yeah, it was some stuff going on over there that I probably wasn't old enough to deal with, handle, talk about, because that's their business. But yeah, it was later on when I figured out, I was like, oh, that's why mama didn't want me to even get involved. What's going on? Be susceptible to whatever. She saw it. She was like, nope, just gonna be no. So
Mm. So it's
sometimes it be
interesting.
like that. But
It's interesting you brought
I'm
that
sorry.
point up about. I said it's interesting that you brought up that point about mum blocking the move in terms of you being able to be with the friends and stuff like that. So obviously take
Yes.
out the experience of knowing better because you now know the end result. At the time when mum is blocking that, what's your thoughts towards mum at that point in time? What's your mindset at that point?
Well, I guess to be honest, the first thought was my mom was kind of tough, kind of strict. Even though she gave us a lot of freedom, she was, how she said, she shielded us from a lot of things, but she didn't protect us from the truth. Like something happened, she would explain to us, even at a young age, what that means, what is happening. But the effect from it, I don't think we actually felt like you actually going through it, or catching that trauma. She tried to shield you from it. But if we had a question about something, or we saw something, witnessed something, she would explain it. Like, okay, sit you down. This is what's happening here. This is what it means. This is what it means for you, or whatnot. So my first thought is, my mom was kind of old school, rap, very churchy lady. So yeah, whatever mama say is whatever mama say. Ain't no really questioning that. It's what it is. The second thought was I was confused. I was like, well, why can't I? That thought came up. Why can't I? Now, even to this age, even though I'm a grown behind man, I still have a healthy fear of my mama. That's my mama. Got a healthy fear and respect. You know, that woman raised me. I keep that. But as we get later on this evening, yeah, it got to a point where that woman taught me, and it got to a point where we disagreed on things, and I had to, no, mama, I'm a man now. No, and this is why. She had just sit there, and be like, oh, well, you know what? I did teach you that. I did teach you that. So
Mm.
yeah, interesting. My mom is interesting. Everybody loves her. Everybody want her to be their mama. She one of their mamas. The neighborhood mama. Everybody want to come to our house. Like, hey, what Miss Betty cooking? And all kind of mess. I had one of them mamas.
I appreciate that.
Good times with her.
Johan,
Good times.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate that. Johan, anything that Trey's kind of saying that kind of resonates with you and any of your
Man,
experiences in the past?
man, listening to Trey talk about his mom makes me talk about my mom. And I no longer have my mom, and that's another story for
Condolences,
another
bro.
time. But what I would say is, Trey, our mom, essentially, when they're raising their boy, they know their strengths and their weaknesses. And the experience that you had with going to the neighbor's house and all this stuff, that was my experience my whole life. Because all my siblings, so I got 3 brothers and 2 sisters. I'm the youngest of 6. And all of them went to boarding school. They all went to boarding school. And so they had like an apartment where they were staying at. They had, like a bigger allowance and all this thing. And all my life, I was always wanting to like be away from the house, right? And when I moved to the US, that was the first time that I actually which was like 11 years ago now, was the first time that I stepped away from my parents' home. And I was homesick for like 3 months straight. I was calling my mom crying, telling her I wanted to come home. And then my mom kept saying, see, this is the reason why I didn't want you to leave the house, because everybody else was built for this. You were never built for that. And I didn't know she was protecting me for all those years from from this reality that one day I'm gonna have to be out there without her. And then it just hit me. And even now, I kept calling her still, and she stopped taking my calls at one point because she was like, "You gotta stop." So what I was just sharing that example is that our moms essentially, they know something about us that we necessarily don't. And when we were talking about rejection, sometimes love is also receiving a no. That's something that I've learned, and that also comes from rejection. And I don't know about you, Trey, but I don't know if you guys are dads, but like me as a dad, I have to say no to my son sometime, and it makes him sad, right? But I know why I'm saying no to him. So I think that's the huge thing about like rejection in a very lovable way, like our parents or our family members.
Yeah, I'm happy to tell my son no, because it's the only way he's gonna learn sometimes. So, it happened to me when I was a kid. My mom told me, don't worry, it'll get fun again, like I did. I was like, oh, now I get it. I get to say no. And here's why. And that's the other part of it. Sometimes I don't think, even as parents, I think our parents' generation, it was a no without explanation most of the time. You just supposed to accept it. I think I see now my mom tried to be a little different. She'd tell you no and mean it's a no, but she would explain to you or try to explain to you why it's a no. Uh, even when we got whoopings, me and my sister, my mom she just didn't never beat us. It was, this is why you're getting beaten. Why are you getting beaten? So you understood exactly any spanking I ever had. I knew exactly why I got it, and if I had to look back on it, yeah, I probably deserved it because I was doing some wild shit. So yeah, I deserved it. I had to look at it like, yeah, mama wasn't unfair. Like, yeah, I did do that. She did tell me not to, and I did it anyway. What can you do? It is what
Yeah.
it is.
And as a parent, you really have to you learn that, because you're protecting them in your no, and they don't really know what you do that for. Like sometimes you be saying like, hey, don't do this, don't, they try, and then our parents saw things in us that we did not see in ourselves back then, that sometime it maybe created some frustration, and the way of us expressing that frustration that we had was essentially be rebellious kids around them. But they were disciplining us because they were just trying to gauge that frustration of us receiving the no around the house. But they knew exactly what it was. That's why when you have like a guy in a neighborhood, I don't know if you ever had that everybody know that he can sometimes just pop off. His mom is always the one who's going to be able to calm him down, because she know how how he was from day one, and I hate to bring, example in pop culture like Kanye, So for me, it's like relationship with parents is always going to be very unique for us boys, especially with our moms, because they are our first love. They're the first woman that we fall in love with. We feel safe with them. So the way they're treating us is really defining our relationship with people and especially with women. So that's, that's deep what you just said. And I was trying to piggyback on that.
Yo, I agree
Mm.
with you, yo. I mean, I firmly believe the relationship men have with their mother teaches them usually how to recognize love in another woman or even liking the girl, because we tend to play them against our mother. Like, okay, my mom is this. What are you? Do she fit the parameters? Is she like her? We tend to do that. Women do it if they have fathers in their lives as well. It's just a vice versa thing. Like that first love thing is real. It's very real.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
I do
real.
think we got to be
Okay.
careful though, because at most times, most women ain't never gonna live up to your mama. So don't you know don't put them behind the 8 ball and try to make them live up to your mother. It's not gonna happen most times.
And
And that
that's
hurts them.
that's where the mama's boys come from, because what's happening
Yeah.
is they go in the dating world looking for their mama, but it's something that they
Hmm.
have to do within themselves in the transition of loving their sisters, loving their mom, and starting to love women like a woman, essentially, to learn that, okay, she's not going to be my mom. She's not going to be like able to put up with whatever my mom was putting up with, because at the end of the day, us as adult, when we go into society, we go with a code. When you're raised by a mom and a dad in a household, you have a code. When you meet a young lady out there, she has her parents' code, and sometimes those codes don't match. So us men, we have to learn how to like give them grace, because they are now our mamas. They're not gonna get us right away.
Mm-hmm. I'll definitely hear that. Definitely hear that. Appreciate appreciate Joanne and Trey. Let me get Corey in the conversation. Corey, good to have you on board. How you doing, Cap?
Yeah, man, I've been better, but I'm doing all right. How you guys doing?
Um, I'm good, bro. I'm good, bro. I'm alive and well, bro.
Good,
Alive
good.
and well. It's good to have you on here, bro.
Yeah.
I asked the boys initial question, which is, what do they see? What do they hear when the word rejection is said? And I want to get your kind of thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, so immediately when I hear the word rejection, I hear not good enough. That's the first thing, no matter what situation it is. If I'm being rejected, the other person or the other thing feels that my qualifications, who I am as a person, what I bring to whatever situation is not enough to withstand that rejection.
Okay, talk to me about that. So you said I like that where you took it. So not enough. Um, that's I like that particular sentiment, that angle you brought to that. When you say not enough, just kind of expand a little bit more on that for us, so that people can get a better idea, and you can incorporate any experiences that you have in terms of feeling like that particular feeling that you felt.
Yeah, so not enough. When it comes to rejection, I think it's something that we have to just realize that rejection does not always mean a bad thing, and being told not enough, that you're not enough, or what you bring in is not enough, does not mean that it's a bad thing. It just means that the person or whatever you're dealing with at the time has a certain requirement. You have to respect their requirement, and the fact that you don't meet that the requirement doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means that it's not what they're looking for. So I think if we look at rejection from a sense of, okay, is this an opportunity to grow? Is this an opportunity to do better, to become better? Or is it just me that no matter what I do, I can't overcome this hill? There's a lot of different ways to look at it. But when I say the whole it's not enough, like I said, it just doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. And I think a lot of times we look at rejection as a bad thing. Sometimes that something may just not be for you. An example I would give is like, I think you mentioned this too earlier, Kojo, like applying to a college. Their qualifications to get enrolled in that college may be different than what you have to bring. Maybe you could have hunkered down on your studies a little bit more. Maybe you could have been more into a particular extracurricular activity to receive a scholarship. at this university or this college. So you have to ask yourself, is something that I could have done to better position myself to be what this person would want, or this thing, or this corporation, this entity would want? Or is it just that it's something outside of my concern? I mean, outside of my ability to give. So that's an example of not being enough, even in interaction with women. If you're trying to talk to a woman and she's not feeling you, then that means that, okay, something about you, some type of vibe that you're giving off is not something that she's willing to vibe with. It could be how you're dressed. It could be how you smell. It could be how you look. It could be how your hair is cut. It can be a lot of different things. So because of those things being a possibility, again, you have to ask yourself, is this something that I cannot fix or overcome, or if this is just something from that person and it's not personal towards me? So, yeah.
Good points. Good points. I'm liking it. All right, Trey, did you want to add something to what Corey was saying? Oh, you muted yourself. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, me myself. I understood what you're trying to say, but it did alarm me or jar me when you said not enough. I was like, ooh, because that could easily be taken as negative or affect you negatively. But the way he explained it, I get what he was saying. But it was a little concerning when I first heard that, because I never had the feeling of, I never really had the feeling of not being enough, even with some of the rejection I've been through.
Okay, so
It's
Trey,
just interesting. Yeah.
okay, so what would be your response to that when someone is offering you rejection or saying that they're rejecting you for whatever thing? What is your take from that?
It depends on the situation. Can you give me a scenario?
Okay, say, okay, so I'll say, I'll be the elephant in the room. So let's say if you're engaging with a woman, you're walking up to a woman, you're talking the best you can, you're saying all the right things you feel are right, but it's not something that she's vibing with. So she's telling you no when you ask her for a number. How do you feel when it comes to that?
Um, Usually I've always just accepted that, you're not going to be everyone's flavor. That's just, what it is. Um, Me, I tend to go about things a little differently. I've always been like that. Um, I'm usually the guy in the room that's posted up on the back wall, scoping the room out first. It's always been me. I kind of see who's checking for me, if I'm checking for them. Usually, by the time I decide to approach a woman, I'm kind of getting the sense that, okay, she's someone interested. Now it's time to holler at her. I just don't really walk up blind. So a lot of that I kind of avoid. I scope the room out first. But in that particular situation, and I have been in it, I've always taken it well. Like, sometimes some people just ain't feeling you. I mean, there's been times I've just not been feeling them. I think the key is, well, with all this rejection talk, the key is, how do you, like you asked me, how do you handle it? Like, some people handle it better than others. You know, I don't think it's the end of the world when it happens to me.
But
Versus I've seen others, they did act like it was the end of the world. Like, oh my God, she didn't want me. I'm like, bro, you just met her, you don't know her, she ain't like you. It's okay. All right.
you know what, you
And
make a good point, and I want to explore a little bit more what you just said, because it's a difference between dealing with rejection versus avoiding rejection. So with the example that you
Sure.
gave me, it came off as you were avoiding a rejection by only approaching the women that you felt were into you. Now, going in blind, that's something that you can confront. That's something you can go like, you know what,
Yeah.
I think the woman is beautiful. No matter how she looks at me, no matter what she thinks about me, I think she's worth the risk of rejection by going to her and approaching her. So there's a little bit of a difference there. So if you're doing a good job of avoiding rejection, is not the same thing, only in my opinion, of you handling rejection well. So avoiding it and being able to handle it are both skills that you need to have, and in my opinion, but don't be afraid of either one.
True. And I have shot my shot sometimes at something that might be unattainable, but I'm gonna shoot the shot because you never know. You never know. But yeah, there's been times shoot the shot, worked out, shoot the shot, not so much. She just wasn't feeling me. She wasn't feeling me. I guess it's to that point. I've always been, all right, listen, it's just not the end of the world. That's the point that always concerned me with my fellow brothers, and they getting rejected all the time. They literally, you can see the soul leaving their chest or something, like, oh God, they can't take it. I'm like, bro, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay, because I know what that can lead to. Those are the same dudes that gets a little too obsessive, and next thing you know, they're stalking this girl. I'm like, stop. This is bad now. Stop. Like, I already see you going down this wrong path. Just stop. But each person is so different of how they handle things.
Okay.
And
I was
Kojo,
about to say something, Corey.
Corey, what I was trying to say maybe is that maybe the word "not enough" was maybe fitting with your description, because your explanation was perfect. But maybe when I'm thinking about enough, I'm thinking about quantity. And then when we're thinking about rejection and what we have within ourselves, I think more about quality. So maybe using a word like not the right fit, it might be more fitting. Just to piggyback on what Trey was saying, essentially, because saying that when you get rejection, you're not enough, it can have a negative connotation when it comes down to affirming yourself, when it comes down to rejection. I saw in the comments somebody said about rejection can be a redirection, which is something we hear all the time, and I think maybe that's the better attitude to have. But in your attitude, you're not wrong either. I just think that using the term as not enough for me is not necessarily affirming the mindset of your explanation. So that's why I'm thinking maybe saying like not the right fit is a better term, because we all have quality that don't necessarily match with where we're going or who we want to date.
So let me jump in for you, Corey, as well. So what if though? Because what Johan explained, I get it, right? It's not affirming, but what is the reality of what your thought is? Because that's what we're dealing with now. So now let's go to the depth of what you're actually feeling in that moment. I think this is where it's really important as well, especially as men, because sometimes we can put the armor on, like I got rejected and it's cool, isn't it? Yeah, it is what it is, right? And of course, we say that for the outside world, but what happens to you within? What are your thought processes? Now, I don't think everybody's mindset is I wasn't good enough, because again, everyone has different attachment styles. Number one, everyone has different inputs from their parent and their upbringing. I can actually understand where Corey's coming from, and I think that's because the way that we think very cerebrally and the way that we think, we're quite similar. And I think the inputs that I've had from my parents, I can also understand being emotionally avoidant. And for me, being emotionally avoidant as my attachment style, fervent avoidant, I can see where my thing where it's not enough can come in. You know what I mean? Like maybe you're not enough, or maybe rather my one is I don't like. I'll be honest with you, I don't like rejection. I'll be honest with you, I hate it. I'm talking about, I hate it. So I have my tactics. You know what I mean? But if I was to go to the crux of what happens or what emotions I feel in those moments, there are several emotions that happen all at once, and I think
Your audio went out, Kojo.
Audio.
There you go.
We can't hear you.
We're still down. I'll speak on this. Go ahead. I hear you now.
Sorry about that. I was going to say that there are several feelings and emotions that you might feel at one specific time. It's not always one dominant, it's not always one emotion that you feel at a particular time, a point in time, but it also depends on your upbringing. So I can give an example, right? If I get rejected by a girl now, okay, let me give you an example. You're in a club, and this happens to me all the time. I can't lie to you. This happens to me all the time. I'm in a club, and then I'm asking myself, okay, should I approach? Now, my head is thinking this. It's not the rejection I'm scared of. I start thinking about if another Negro sees me get rejected, I don't want to be laughed at and embarrassed. I hate embarrassment because that's my main thing. It's embarrassment that I hate. The rejection itself isn't too tough to take. Do you know what I'm saying? It's the embarrassment of another guy or girl even seeing it. Do you know what I mean? And then I begin to overthink because in my head I'm thinking to myself, okay, you get rejected from that girl. If a girl sees you get rejected from that girl, how her mind is thinking, if you couldn't get it with that girl, can you come over here and talk to me too? My head starts spinning. So my head starts thinking and over calculating because of the way that my mind works, right? That's not always a positive because that gets you in analysis, paralysis by analysis. You end up getting into, right? So you can have different thoughts at one given time in terms of how you feel, but I think the question we're asking is, how are you feeling in that immediate moment? And I think different guys will have different ways they're feeling. The most important thing is how we're actually handling those feelings in that particular moment. Some may need to affirm themselves at that point. Some may feel fine, and they're just comfortable with that particular aspect. You know, depending again upbringing wise. Trey responding, and Black, I'll get you back in, and then Johan, you can get in.
You're right. We're gonna have different feelings on it because we're different people. But I do think the first thing that men do when they experience rejection, especially from a woman, is self-reflection. Okay, is there something about me that she wasn't feeling? Is my fit right? Will my breath stink? Something. My hair ain't right. We self-reflect first. Like,
Agreed.
okay, was I not on point tonight? And then we may go to the thought that you just iterated, Kojo. Like, okay, if I step to her, I just stepped to her. It's after you're after. I just stepped to her. She shut me down. Now everybody looking at me like, oh, well, she didn't want him. Now the next guy roll up, say she accepts him. Now you're comparing yourself to him. Like, well, did this cat, she whipped for that? For real? Yeah, we definitely go through different emotions when you get matumbo. You know, it just depends. You know what? To your right, it does depend on the situation as well. Like in the club, it's a little different. House party is going to feel different because that's usually friends, close people you might know. That's a different feeling. Then versus strangers you don't know. It's a different feeling. No.
Be sure. Corey, go for it.
Yeah, so I wanted to make mention of what Johan said. Okay, so I want to let you know that I do disagree, but respectfully, what you were saying as far as like finding better words. I use clear-cut words when I speak because that's the way life is. Life gives it to you clear-cut. Sometimes we don't have the opportunity of the luxury of sugarcoating our words in the way people feel about us. Sometimes it cuts deep, but it's coming from a real place. So when I say that the feeling of not enough is not in self, it's how the other person who was doing the rejecting, how they feel about you. So I'm not saying you walk into it and someone says something to you and they say, okay, you know what? No, you're not my cup of tea. And now you feel personally that you're not enough. That is the complete opposite right there. So I'm with you guys on that. You should not feel that way about yourself. But when it comes to the whole area of women, I know that's what we were talking about right now. The mindset of us as men should have a stronger mindset to say, okay, we can understand the raw. We don't need our hands held when it comes to rejection, but it does take time to get to that point. You're not going to come out the womb being ready to accept rejection, being ready to accept the fact that someone who you're really interested in is not feeling you. You're not going to do that. That comes with time. It took me time to get to that point. But at the same time, I don't have the mindset of there are certain women that I cannot get. I have a mindset of I can get any woman I want to. And sometimes the mindset, sometimes the confidence will get you to where you want to be. It'll it'll put someone's mindset who was thinking about rejecting you. They see the confidence that you have and who you are as a person and what you bring. And they look at that as, okay, you know what? Maybe I should give this person a chance. Maybe I should step outside of my so-called standards because they may offer something that I didn't even know I needed. They may be somebody I didn't even know I wanted in my life or needed in my life. So let me just give that person the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes the benefit of the doubt can get you a lot of reward. So that's all I wanted to say. With respect to Johan, I do understand where you guys are coming from. It's just the way that I speak. I'm a very direct speaker.
Yeah, man. I did not understand that part, that it was more about the person in front of you. And if that's the case, I totally 100% agree to what you said. Now, with your explanation, I totally agree with what you were saying. And now I understand why you used the term "not enough." So it totally makes sense.
I'm gonna ask a question. It's a wild one because Corey brought up a point and made me think about something. I'm gonna ask it real quick, just get quick answers, and I'm gonna shift the conversation away from here quickly. So I want to ask the guys, the fellas. Corey said, I get the feeling that I can move to any girl I want.
I knew you were going there.
Because I have to ask that question because I like I've I hear that. I hear it and I love it and I appreciate it. Right. So I want us to be very honest now because we're talking about rejection still as well, right? I would agree that all of us are positive individuals here, but I want to ask you a question. Every girl that you've seen and thought to yourself, they are spicy, they are good looking, they're amazing, they're sweet, they're pretty. You understand? Have you approached all those girls? And suffice being in the situation you're allowed to, because obviously you might have been single, right? Have you been able to approach all of those particular girls? Or has there been moments where you've even thought about this might not be the one? Or you've never even gone over? I just thought to myself, maybe I felt a little bit of a different feeling. I felt fear. I don't know, because the word fear sounds a bit negative, right? But the reality is we do feel these things. So I want to see the man them. I'm going to ask you a question. Have you approached every single girl that you thought was a baddie? If you could, have you approached all the options that you could? Have you been able to do it? I would love to hear that experience because we're talking about rejection. We're talking about that aspect as well, just because of where the conversation went there. So I want to see what your thoughts are. Johan, talk to me.
And you got to put me on the spot.
Absolutely.
For me, I would say no. I did not. I have not approached every woman that I've found attractive or that I was interested. So there has been a few potential soulmates out there that I've let walk by me just because, I just haven't done that because I think us men, we are hunters, and a good hunter generally knows how to, find what he's looking for. But at the same time, you also have to really know how to seize the moment. So if I'm a lion and I'm going after a gazelle, and there's this one gazelle that I really want in the whole pack, and I'm trying to go after her, but as a lion, and the opportunity doesn't really present itself because there's other things going on, like she may be in the middle of water or something like that. So I've never been the kind of guy that because she is everything that I'm looking for, I'm just gonna go. I'm always gonna find the right timing because it's all about timing. Because you can meet the right woman for you, but if it's the wrong timing, she's not gonna see you as the right one, and that's generally how you see people getting on and off out of a relationship.
So let me fire the question, a second question. So have you ever not approached because you thought that this might not work out?
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure. When you go through breakups as a young adult, generally what we do is we are developing patterns and identifier of quote unquote red flag. So when you are, let's say, dating, let's go back to the club. If I see a woman who is carrying herself in a certain kind of way, generally, and again, in early 20s, if it reminds you of your trauma, your pain, anybody who disappointed you, even though she looks fine, you're going to walk away because in your mind, you're like, okay, the way she's moving right now, she moved just like the one girl that did this to me. I don't want that. So yeah, definitely.
Johan gave us a very pretty answer.
You think so?
Oh, you gave us a pretty answer. I'm gonna come back to you. Don't worry about it, sir. Trey,
All right.
talk to me.
I'll give it an example. Okay, to your question, no, I have not gone after every single chick that I might find attractive or whatnot. You know, the ones I have gone after that, I would say is looking like a 87% success rate. We're gonna put it right there. But I'm gonna give this example. Okay, it's something personal about me. I'm a Pisces, right? And I don't believe 100% in zodiac signs, whatever. But I'm a Pisces because I see similarities in my personality. My perfect match is supposed to be a Scorpio. The one that I knew. You ever get in that relationship where, okay, you think you're in love, but then you find that one for a guy, you like, okay, now I know what love is. I had that one. From 16 to about early 20s, we dated on and off for about 6-7 years. I thought she was the one. She's also the one that hurt me the most. She's a Scorpio. Funny thing, I probably haven't, I stayed away from Scorpio since because I know that pitfall. I, love them, but I know that's my weakness. So I'm like, ugh. Yeah, let me step to the side on that. But Johan did say something that I thought was interesting. You know, go through dating, you go through relationships, you go through breakups, you do start noticing a pattern. Some patterns that's good for you, some patterns, as Coach says, I like a little toxic with mine. And you learn what that toxicity is and how much you can take. So as you go through life, as you get older, you look for some of those traits. You see a woman, Coach like, you know what, she's fine. But her toxicity is just a little bit too much. Just a little bit too much over for what I can deal with. You got to turn it down. Then you find one just right. Let me go try and get that. As we get older and as we deal with rejection, acceptance, you do learn how to hunt better, hopefully. You learn how to hunt better. What game you trying to go for? How you going to take it down? What's the possibility of this game getting away from you? We go through that. We can be very logical and analytical with how we approach women. You do try to put yourself in the best situation possible to succeed, no matter what it is.
So, thank you, Trey. I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing that. I think that was a pretty answer too. I'm gonna say that, Trey. I think it was a pretty answer too. I think I'm asking the wrong question, okay? Because I wanted to see if you guys would come there by yourselves, okay? But since we're not coming, you're not coming to the water. I'm gonna have to lead you to it, okay? I'm gonna ask a more direct question, okay? Have you been afraid to approach a woman that you liked? Have you been afraid? Have there been moments where you actually genuinely was afraid? And I'm using the word afraid because I think that's the most vulnerable word we can use. Because if I don't use that word, it tends to be like, yeah, bro, me, like, I saw her, but she has some toxic traits. No. That's not what I'm talking about. Yeah, those things there. No. I'm talking about, have you been afraid to approach a woman that you actually wanted, that you actually liked? You saw her, you liked her, but you didn't approach. I'm asking that question. Trey's lifting his head. So what's he saying?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Because I thought she was
That's the
out of
answer
my
I wanted.
league.
Thank
I
you.
thought she was at that time.
That's it. Mm-hmm.
At that time, I knew she was out of my league. I was like, I am trying to punch above my weight class, even though I've been doing well at that. But this one right here, nah, I might get knocked out. Nah, but I wanted to, but nah, she was out of my league. I'm like, okay, I'm okay I was doing all right from where I was, but I ain't barely had 2 cents to rub with her dollar. No, she was out of my league. I couldn't go for it. Couldn't go for it.
Mm.
And I think I almost got caught the vibe that she may have liked me, but I looked at it. I was like, you know what? This could turn into a sugar mama situation. I ain't trying to be a sugar baby. Not really. It's cool. Maybe when I was 20 something, I can use a little money. Hey, baby me. But I'm a little older now. I'm like, nah. I just stepped back. Couldn't do it. Couldn't pull the trigger on it. So yeah, I said no.
That's what I wanted
I
to hear.
said no.
That's what I wanted to hear. Johan, what are you saying? He's looking at me like he's confused. He's like, wait a minute.
Well, can you repeat the question so I can answer it properly?
Yes. So I was asking this question. I mean, I didn't ask this originally. I was trying to see if I can get you there. But the question I'm trying to ask now is, have you seen a woman that you liked? Just see her on sight. She's pretty. She's attractive to you, but you have been fearful to approach. You didn't approach in the end because you were fearful. Have you had a situation like that?
Man, okay. I want to like, because I think I'm an attractive guy in my personality. So generally, when I see women who are, and honestly, God, you see, that's why I don't want to say it, because I know
Johan,
you guys.
yes or no? Have you been afraid to approach a woman that you thought, the looks of might be? I'm not even trying. That's me even leading you. Have you been afraid to approach a woman that you are attracted to? That's it. Just yes, and then you can explain. Yes or no?
Yes,
Then you can
yes,
explain.
and ever in my life, yes, in my lifetime, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
now you can explain. What was the reason why you didn't approach? What was going through your mind at that time?
Oh no, it's what Trey said. It's like, in the way that a woman carry herself and she talks to men and people around her, you are generally able to understand her, her emotional value, her personal value, her background, where she's coming from, what she's about. So generally, if you know that this person has something that you're looking for, but you're not there yet, you're not going to go there, because attraction comes from respect. Attraction comes from chemistry and connection. And if you're meeting someone who's on a purpose and well established in their career, and then you're still just figuring things out of your life, that's not going to be necessarily attractive to that woman off the bat. So of course you're going to be afraid that she whether going to turn you down, because once again, rejection is one of those feelings that not all of us can control. So I think that because you're afraid of rejection, and when you meet those kind of women, you kind of checking yourself. That's why generally when you see a beautiful woman, whether in the neighborhood or around friends, you ask your friends like, hey, your cousin or your friends of your cousin, like you're trying to get the information on them because you're trying to understand who they are as women. And generally what we're looking for is a woman who has self-governance, who does have a good head on her shoulder. But anything else after that, you kind of have to punch in your weight class, like Trey was saying. Yeah, for sure. We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Kojo.
I said thank you very much. That's the real answers I wanted, boys. That's the real answer I wanted. Yeah,
Yeah.
we gonna keep it going. I like that. Sean, welcome to the panel. I know you might have not heard my older conversation, but we're asking the question now. Have you ever looked at a woman, seen a woman, been out, thought she was attractive and said, I can't approach? Yes or no? And if so, tell us a bit more.
Yes.
Fantastic. Why?
I guess it just basically what everyone is saying is just fear of the interest not being reciprocated. I think not knowing if the interest would be mutual. And in other instances, there have been cases where I've seen a woman, but she's in a group of other women, so the intimidation of having to weed through those other women. There's been instances where sometimes some pretty girls, they always have the, they have a linebacker lined up and just playing defense. So you gotta, unless you have a wingman that's kind of like right there and you guys can kind of go in together. But if you're flying solo and it's a group of girls, sometimes it's very intimidating. And sometimes you have the defensive line that's there that's like, oh, shucks, I got to get through this girl and that girl. And I really want to get to that girl. So sometimes you get caught up in your head of like what's going to happen. And, I think that's another scenario. And then other scenarios are, I'm not a cold approach kind of guy. I typically don't do that. Like I won't just be out someplace, see a stranger, and I'm just going to walk up to her and start, bumping my gums with somebody that we don't have anything in common. Right. So I think in a lot of instances, I will look for some level of signal that, if I am going to come over, like, am I seeing a smile? Have we exchanged glances? Is there an invitation for me to walk over and start to speak? And then when I do, it might start off basic, but then I'll kind of gauge how the conversation is going. Like I may say hi or I give a compliment, but if I get very basic responses or the responses aren't really interested and seeming like the person is interested, then I'm not likely to take the conversation any further. So I might say hello, right? Or how are you today? Or if, but I won't take it any further than, very basic conversation if I'm getting of the vibe that there is no mutual interest.
Appreciate that, Sean. Thank you. Corey, same question to you. Have you ever felt afraid? I say afraid, but have you looked at a woman, seen her, and then not approached? If so, why? If not, tell us also as well why you're not afraid. That'd be good to know. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so for me, I'm not really the guy who's afraid to approach, whether it's rejection that follows or not. So of course I didn't, like I told you before, or I said before, you don't come out the womb feeling this way or feeling this, that you can speak to any woman. So there was a time where, I felt that way. I felt, man, is she too pretty? Is she too this? She's too that. Then I have to understand with myself what I have of value. So if I have something of value that I know that a lot of women would appreciate, then I have to go in with that confidence, whether she is going to see that or not. I know I still have that in me. That's why it doesn't bother me. But has it happened? Have I stopped? I have stopped and did not approach. If, say, for instance, if I just came from the gym, I'm smelly, I'm sweaty, or if I feel like something, I'm looking like a bum in the street. So if I went to the corner store or something like that and saw someone that was pretty, then I didn't approach her because I'm looking at me like, yo, I got to come better than this at her, or I got to come better than that at her. But nothing stops me from approaching her when it comes to my physical appearance or what I have to offer her.
Okay. Corey said he's Superman, so we're gonna leave him alone, let him be Superman, because the rest of us niggas know exactly what it is when you see a beautiful woman and you ain't approached. Okay. Listen, y'all saw me in Atlanta, you saw me in DC. I'm a buzzy person. I like to get talking to women, right? But even me, I have my limits. I'm going to be very real with you. I have my limits. There are times where you do a calculation. Okay. Now, and this, listen, and I'm going to break it all the way down and give you the realness of this. The truth is fear. A lot of this time is fear because I'm calculating something that I actually cannot see. So if I see a beautiful woman, I've already started calculating how much would it cost to maintain this woman? Because she looks super classy. She looks like she needs a lot of maintenance. Do I have the financial capacity to actually maintain this woman's life? So whilst I may attain her, I may have a conversation with her, I may even get through. Do I have the source? Do I have the finances? Do I have the security? Is my stuff even sorted out enough that this girl will be ready for me? Because that may come into conversation, right? That may come into the play later on in the line. I start calculating things before it even gets to that point. All right. Part of it's fear, but part of it's also learned experience. I think you guys will also agree that a man doesn't just start building a house and not thinking about how he's about the cost of building that house. We know that in order to get into a relationship, we are called to be leaders, providers as well. So that means I have to calculate the cost, because I can't just enter a relationship and think it's going to be say la vie. You know what I mean? So, but the reality is, the times when I have not approached, I've got into my head. I've given myself too much time to think. Sometimes I've seen a girl and I think to myself, if I compare myself I'm honest. If I compare myself to her and I look at the league in terms of the beauty leagues, I'm not in the league. And I could be honest about that. Now, hey, if you believe that you're the most sexiest man alive, no matter how much the girl is pretty, that's your business. As for me, I'm having real thoughts in real time. There's times where I look at a person, I look at me, and I go, I don't think there's not even one league, it's three. So let me leave this one alone, bro, because this one is a different type of league, bro. And I'm not about to be in a group chat as the ugly nigga. Just going to be saying be real with you, okay? But my brain is thinking that, right? So I'm calculating all these kind of things in my head. So before so there were times where I'm like, and I'm a person as well where, and I can be real as well, and unless I'm buzzing, which is what you guys saw in Atlanta and DC, when I'm buzzing, I don't care. But if I'm not buzzing, I'm calculating. So I'm looking for what we call the perfect opportunity. I don't want to see you have headphones in your ear. Don't be around your friends because it's too much. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm looking for that almost that perfect opportunity. But again, the key aspect of the word here, when you come down to the crux of it, is fear. You do feel fear, right? And I think sometimes as men, we cover it up. And that's why I asked you guys a question in a rounded way first to see what your response would be. Because a lot of times I think as men, sometimes we want to put on that facade that we Superman. But the reality is you're not. I'm not. We have moments where we feel these things and you are even afraid of the rejection you might get because you're already thinking about the person and how they may respond to you and how they may see you. So where I'm not saying, again, thank you guys, I appreciate you not saying. I'm not saying I'm ugly or anything. I'm saying that in the sense of you do make these calculations in your mind, and that's why I asked the guys first and foremost: has there been moments where you saw a girl, okay, and thought to yourself, and she's pretty, she's attractive, but you didn't approach? And the real aspect of that is you fear rejection. You place yourself in a situation where you ask yourself the real question: will I even be able to measure this person? Do you know what I mean? And etc., right? And depending on what source you're carrying, and we all have our different sources and different contexts of when your source is oozing. You meet me in a club, my source is oozing because I'm dancing, I'm killing it. But if you meet me somewhere else, my source might not be killing it. Do you know what I'm saying? So and so at different contexts and different seasons, we feel differently. Do you know what I mean? Like we feel some type of way. So it all depends on that aspect as well. But I would say again, very, very much so, you know, that again, we all have those moments of self-doubt and those moments where we fear and those moments. I know how I put there, women respond to a confident approach, can't be slipping in self-doubt. Absolutely right. But there is always a woman that you're going to be feeling some type of way with. And that's the reality. Right. And I say this because I was one of my guys. This is my last point. I'll let you guys jump in. I remember one of my guys back in the day, it's like 2012. This guy's like 6 foot, 5'6", basketball player, talent up, light skin, good looking brother. Yeah. This guy gets girls for fun. And I'm talking about baddies, not the normal girls that we get. I'm talking baddies. Yeah. But days. Okay. Bad eyes. All right. There's levels, there's leagues. See, anyone who's not honest, and this I think when men and women kind of we kind of think. I think us men are kind of realistic when we look at our leagues. Let me not go there. Anyway, so obviously, oh boy, my guy that I was rolling with, right? There's leagues. He's several tiers above, right? We're in the club, we're out, and we see this girl. I think she's pretty. I don't get to. I think she's pretty, but it's not the baddest I've seen from the one he's been taking out. I've seen some baddies he's taking home. Do you know what I mean? But he's come to me. He's like, bro, I'm sweating. I said, what are you sweating for? I said, bro, that girl's fire. I'm looking at the girl like, bro, this is not the fireest girl you've ever shown me, bro. So if you're scared to approach this one, I'm gonna be confused. He's like, bro, I'm sweating. I can't do it, bro. He's like, my shape up's not even correct. I'm what the frick? Your shape up's not correct, bro. You 6 foot something, saucy, light skin. You don't even need a shape up, bro. Some of us need to do all the extras to even get a little attention, bro. So what's going on, right? And it's the first ever time that I've seen him be human, and I realized all men feel fear and all men feel self-doubt at some point when it comes to a woman, because the beauty does something to you. You check yourself. You understand? But the real aspect is we'll talk about is the emotion of the fear of rejection. That is there for every man to experience. Nobody's never not experienced that as men. You know what I mean? But yeah, any other thoughts on this before I'm gonna go back. I want to come back to the main topic because this was a nice little detour, but I want to come back to the main topic and ask some real questions. Anyone else got little additives onto this?
Yeah, I would say that there's also levels to the rejection, right? Because or levels to the interaction once you engage with a woman, right? So you may go as far as to get the number, right? So you may get her number or her IG or whatever it takes to connect with her. Then that next step is, okay, so what now? Right? And then you deal with, the interaction and how it goes once you're together, wherever that together takes place, whether it's out in a restaurant, one-on-one by yourselves. So I think as men, we're constantly dealing with, okay, so what do I do next? And there's these internal calculations that we need to do. Now, some are more fluid at them than others, right? But you're constantly trying to assess, okay, can we kiss? Can I touch? Are we gonna go to the next stages, right? And I think sometimes there still is that fear of, okay, I got here, can I go there? Now, is she gonna let me go there, right? Or does she really want that? So I think we're for the most part always thinking it's not always going to be disjointed, but there is always this thought process of, can I get to this point, until you get comfortable with the person. But I think in our first interactions with a woman, we're always in a state of calculating, okay, is this okay to do? Right? Now, that's if you're a thought-provoking person. Now, if you just don't care and you're just going to go for it, then that's for a different type of person, which I don't think that's the kind of guy we're talking about, right? But I feel like we're always assessing, right? So we're like, "Ooh, can I try this? Okay, does that work for you?" And then you're trying to navigate that territory, but there always is that fear of, does she like me? Is she interested? Until you really, until you're able to get comfortable with that particular woman. So I think for sure, most of us are constantly thinking or making sure that we're gonna be, because ultimately at the end of the day, nobody likes the feeling of rejection. I think some of us handle it better, and the more mature we get, the better we get at being okay with if it happens, right? I feel confident about myself, but I know enough to know that every woman is not going to want me. You know what I mean? That's just, now other people might feel differently, but I'm confident enough to know that, hey, listen, I feel good about myself. I feel like I bring a lot to, I bring a lot to any relationship, but hey, a woman has a right to feel differently about that. So that thought is always in your mind. Is what I have to offer going to resonate with her? Is what she sees enough for her to feel like, okay, I could give Sean a shot? And sometimes it might be like, that's not my vibe. I want a different type of guy. There's certain things that I want, the energy that he's given, it's not for me. And that's a reality if I'm just kind of checking myself, right? Saying, hey, listen, is she going to really feel that way? Is she going to see what I have to offer? So these are the things that I think about, if I'm being 100% honest about it. And then sometimes those thoughts may lead you down a path of be like, you know what? I don't want to deal with the angst of her rejecting me, so I'm just going to move on, and it happens that way sometimes. Or I look for signals. Like I said earlier, I'm looking for signals. I'm not going to go into any situation and the woman has her head down and I'm going to start tapping her on the shoulder and play hitch. That's just not me. Some guys are like that and they're good with that. That's not me. I want I want to see some level of interest. I want us to be able to engage. So if you don't seem, if your body language looks a particular way, if you don't seem interested, if when I'm in your space, there isn't that energy, then yeah, I'm not gonna do it. Now, what I'll say is, in Kojo, we had this experience in DC, right? There was a beautiful woman, right? And this is why I say there's levels, right? And there was a vibe, right? She was just fun, easy energy, right? Easy energy. I'm not saying easy. I'm saying fun, easy, light energy. And we were able to just enjoy her. Nothing came out of it physically, right? We would have loved for it to, but it just didn't manifest itself. But I think some women just lend themselves easy to that lightness where it makes the environment very comfortable, for you to kind of just be able to take next steps. And when that is present, in my experience, I'm always going to be comfortable shooting my shot, or at least, taking next steps. So when that energy is there, I think those opportunities definitely make it more comfortable. And it's not to say it's on women to do X, Y, and Z amount of things. Just from my personal experience, when there is an openness or a fun lightheartedness, it makes it much more easier for you to, approach, have conversations, and move things along.
Did you use my toothbrush?
And Kojo, if I can add something to that, was today I'm reading the comments, and I believe her name is Dorika. She mentioned something about the signals, and that's kind of what Sean was referring to. Generally, with relationship and dating, we always say it takes two to tango. And that analogy, what you can see it too in meeting someone, before you get to tango, you have to get to the dance floor. And the man has to extend his hand and the woman has to grab it. So from the whole signal thing, if I'm looking at you and you're looking back at me and you smiling back at me and I'm looking at you, I already know we're on the dance floor together. Now I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to extend that hand to you. But now if you're walking away from the dance floor, now it's killing the vibe, and walking away from the dance floor can be having maybe a bad attitude around people. Let's say we all having fun at a club with multiple table, or we are at a library and you being rude to people. Like those are things when we are trying to approach women that we essentially like paying attention to, and I can essentially like pull us away. But I think for all of us men, it's all about playing in your league. As soon as you figure out that you're playing in your league, you get excited, you get creative, you taking different approach, and essentially that's all it is. And generally, like, to know that you're playing in your league, it is tough whenever you are just at the store or at the gym, because we can't really gauge those things based on being at a grocery store or at the fitness gym, because you don't know what her walk of life is. She's probably doing something that is like nothing related to you. So I think it's all about really like calculating how you're making your first impression. And that's a lot of pressure on us men to figure out. And that's not even just face-to-face, even online dating. They even created a whole app that give women the shot to start the first line, because they realize men were shy to open up in other apps. So all I'm just saying is like that first line, the way that you meet someone, is really meaningful to whether or not you're going to give the number or not. And if you get the number, that's another thing too, where you really have to like be on your A game on a conversation with her. And unfortunately, if some of our men don't have enough confidence, you're losing who you are and you're trying to mold yourself into who this person is. And the relationship end up not working out.
That's it. Know your league. Know your league. All right, let me steer the conversation back to where we were heading to. I want to ask a question. Twofold. When have you guys dealt with rejection badly? Doesn't have to be about women, but it could just be, when have you handled rejection badly? you could say you've never had that before, but when have you handled rejection badly? When have you taken rejection badly?
I guess this is a good practice example of vulnerability. I don't know. Let me see. The same young lady I was telling you about earlier, when I was late teens to early 20s. Um, Let me see. You know, I hit you with the story. I was out with my homegirl. It was her birthday. Me, my homeboy, my sister, her boyfriend. We all decided to go out. Um, I called my girl. She was my girl at the time. I knew she had to work that day. She was at Pizza Hut. She had to work that day, and I wasn't sure what time she was getting off. But I asked her, "Hey, you know what time you getting off? You want to roll with us? We're going to get dinner and go to the movies because Too Fast, Too Furious was out. We was going to go see that." And she couldn't go. She's like, "Yeah, I get off some time. I'm tired. I'm just hit the house, you know, to tell your girl happy birthday because she knew it too. You know, just hang out with us." All right, cool. We go to the next town over, dinner, great, have a good time. Uh, go to the movies. Had to. It's funny how things happen. We had to pick a different time that we wanted to go because it was packed. So we chose a later time. We decided to go kill time at the mall, and it was getting close to closing time actually because it was a Sunday. You know, the mall closed early. We walking through the mall, and luckily I see it first. No, actually, yeah, I see it first. I see my girl walking with another dude in the mall. I'm like, wait a minute, hold up, whoa. My homegirl, and this is my road dog. Grew up in the same church. So this is my homie. You know, she she saw my face, looked over, saw her with dude, went, oh wait, this is bad. Now what made it worse? Uh, the the guy that my sister was dating at the time, you know, he was kind of a little street dude. You know, we all knew, you know, whatever. But he was a good guy. He was a good guy. He just, you know, we all played in the streets, is what it is. He had stress with that dude. I recognized the dude. They were beefing. So I'm like, all right, so this is a situation. First, I see my girl with another guy, and your ass supposed to be home, sleep. Okay. You supposed to be home, sleep. On top of that, now I have to deal with the added notion, wait, these two ninjas beefing. It could really get serious right here on many different planes. How do I handle this? Me and her was trying to steer the group the other way. I was going to, you know what? I need to take care of this on my own at another time because I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to react. And the thing that happened is what I didn't want to happen. My homeboy saw it. He looked up and the first one to say it, yo, Trey, ain't that your girl? It was all over them. I was like, all right. So my sister took her boyfriend. They kind of stayed over to the side, and she kept him occupied. He saw him, but you know, just kept him occupied. I rolled up on him. They was at the pretzel stand. Rolled up to the back. Hey, how you doing? Deer in headlights. You know, that's exactly how she looked. Hey, I'm like, hey, how you doing, man? You sure look tired. You know, you good? Like, you know, yeah, you know, I was tired, but you know, somebody just asked me to come out right quick and roll with them. Yeah, well, all right. You know, at that time, I didn't want to cause no stress or drama, even though I was feeling it. I was like, nah. I was like, you know what? I'll holler at you later. You know, and he was quiet. He knew me, but I don't think he knew that me and her was together because the look on his face told me what's going on, what's happening. And then he realized what was happening. It was like, oh, and kind of gave her a look. So I knew then, like, all right, he didn't really know. So I can't really stress with him. He didn't really know. So that's all on her. All right, have to deal with that later. Rest of the night, went to the movies, had a decent time, but of course, this is the back of my head. Went home. I called her up. We're trying to have a conversation. What the F was that? What's going on?
Did you say heifer?
I said, what the F was that? I ain't call it heifer.
Oh, that's like Trey, that's country. That's
You know, I was thinking of some choice words, boy. I was thinking of some choice words. It was Now, mind you, I think this was our second breakup at this time, right? It's just leading to the second one. But no lie, I keep it real. Conversation didn't go well. Pretty much broke up, hung up phone. This I was, I don't know how old, I was like 8, maybe going on 18, I think, something like that. This was the first time I ever cried over a girl. This was the first time. And I ain't gonna lie, when I was a teenager, I was ripping and running. I was, yeah, my F boy percentages was a little high back then. It was in the street slanging it. It shouldn't have been. But it was, but I found her, you find that one, you just like, oh, now you gone. I just knew she was the one when I found her. Yeah. And I got hurt. She was the only woman that I think I actually allowed to hurt me like that. Because I loved her. But I felt embarrassed, angry, betrayed. I almost wanted to choke her a little bit. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I was ready to call her mama because me and her mama was close. I was like, I'm calling your mama. I'm calling your mama. That was the first time and probably the only time I actually cried over a girl. Called my homegirl that night, told her what happened. She's like, oh my God, that's crazy. I'm so sorry. That was rough. It was rough. I was hearing yo, that's rough, buddy. All in my head, it was rough. I ain't never felt like that. My sister, she tried to console a little bit, but I don't think she really knew what to say because she actually counted her as a sister. So it's like, I ain't telling my mama because I'm embarrassed. Like, I'm telling my mom, I think I got to be tough. Like, nah, what the heck I'm crying for? But I think Silk was playing on the radio that night. I was just, man, the Quiet Storm felt different that night. Quiet Storm felt different that night. Every little song was coming on. That was a rough night. That was a rough night. I never thought I would ever feel like that. And that was just further confirmation. Wow. I guess I really was in love with her. Because if I ain't really care, it wouldn't have hit me that hard. It is what it is. But for some reason that hit me. I was like, ooh. But like I said, me and her, it was merry-go-round. We kept spinning the block on each other. Spinning it to that last time when we had, even after during college years, we ended up moving in together down in Charleston. That was, by that time I did wise up and I told her, because I think we had stopped talking to each other about a year or so. And by that time, I do remember saying, at some point you got to grow up. At some point you got to, like you say, build boundaries with yourself or whatever. And I remember telling her, I was like, listen, this is the last time. If we can't get right now, it is what it is. This is what it is. It's just what it is.
Wait,
That was rough.
you took it back?
Oh, for that last time, that was it. Still went through drama on that one. That was
Okay.
I learned a lot.
I ain't
Living with a
judging.
woman on your own, I learned a lot. It was rough. That was, listen, we broke up. First, she just, you know, I don't know how vulnerable we want to get with this, but listen, all our problems has always been infidelity on her part. You know, I'm not a cheater, never been a cheater. You know, I never cheated on any woman I was with. If I'm single, I'm single. I'm out here. I let you know. It's what it is.
Hmm.
If I'm in a relationship, I would never portray you that way because I've seen that enough in my own family around you. I see what it do to people. I ain't never wanted to do that to someone, so I have certain rules and morals about myself. Even though there was temptations, you know, I ain't gonna lie, you know, when you get, you know, for some reason, some women they don't want you till you got somebody decent, you know, because she was a pretty girl, somebody decent. They see, you know, here come the panties. It's crazy how that happens. Crazy how that happens, but it happens. And there was a few times I was like, yo, why did I stay faithful to you? What the heck? Like I could have been, woo. But that had really nothing to do with her. That's everything to do with me and my self-respect and how I view myself, you know. But yeah, I went through the wrangle with her. But she, in my mind, she was the one. You know, I knew I loved her, you know, regardless of what happened. So yeah, that was some pain there. But that last time we were together, that was that was rough. That was rough. You know, when we having arguments about sex and not just, you know, not really having sex. Sex was good. She wanted to do things that I was not comfortable with. I was like, nah, I ain't gonna do that. You know, and next thing you know, she going out at night. Now we're in college, you know, party, you know, it is what it is, but you ain't receiving phone calls 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm hearing this another dude, and they tell you to come pick you up from a party. Come pick me up from a party because they might be drunk. Nah, what the heck? And then you just gonna get out the bed and don't say nothing? You think you going? What? What? You really trying to sneak out of here? You really trying to sneak out of here and not say nothing? I was going through things like that I never thought I was gonna deal with. To the point it got so toxic, you know, stop sleeping in the same bed. I'm like, we acting like we already a married couple. This is ridiculous. So and then she just moved out, stuck me with the bills. You know, I'm thinking the rent's been paid because you know, we put our money together and pay out the rent. I go down to the rent office, the rent ain't been paid in a couple months. I'm like, what do you mean? Whoa, what were you talking about? What do you mean? Like, it was some stuff. I was like, I ain't never. Because one thing I always felt about her, even to a fault, she was too honest sometimes, you know. But I ain't never thought she would, you know, do that to me. Like, you know, that was wild. And you know, and it gets deeper. She came back 8 months later, pregnant, didn't know it was mine or not.
Barry, please, we have to stop. Just stop. Just let us digest, because you just
Listen,
keep hitting us with more. You know what it's starting to sound like? It's starting to sound like that dude Donovan's story. So we just have to
I
like
kind
take this in
I kind of
pieces.
understood Donovan. I kind of understood Donovan just
You
a
have to
little bit.
finish. You have
I
to finish that
think
story.
so, because I was like every time it just I just want to breathe for you because I'm
Listen,
still
I
trying
think
to
every
say
man,
you caught her at the movies and y'all still are together and then y'all have a house and then she didn't pay the rent. So
yeah,
then she got
I
pregnant
love
and
this.
she don't know who the
yeah,
baby daddy is.
yeah.
So
I went
this
through it. That was the
how
one for me.
old were you? How old were you at this time?
Early 20s. Early.
Early 20s.
I'm talking 22, 21, 22 when all this happened. Too
We've all
young to
been
be
there.
going through this.
But I
We've all
mean,
been there.
the other part, I gotta say, like, if you were as calm as you are now, I don't
Yeah,
think you handled the rejection wrong. I mean, the boundaries was just run through ramp shot
yeah.
for sure.
My
But
boundaries is off.
you, yeah, you were just an open door for her. You didn't like fly off the handle.
She's the only woman I ever let that happen to. The only one. Only. So that's why I said she was that one. Like, I think every man, not maybe not to my extreme, but every man, there's that one that you use a fool for. You might have been a small fool, big fool, but there's that one that you was a fool for. I just happened to ran into her early and learned from it afterwards. Because the
I
kid thing,
actually
that
think that
really,
was a little bit later.
huh?
Trey, I was just gonna say you actually run into her a little bit later, generally when that's happening, because that's generally something that happens in your late teens, and for you to
Yeah.
have it happen in your 20s, it's something that's very monumental for your life. And I'm not trying to get in your business, but I'm just saying that generally our 20s are the way that we date in our 20s generally impact how we date in our 30s and 40s.
True.
And by the time we get to our 50s, we've already have too many habits that we would not change. So if you
Yeah.
don't rectify that when you get in your 30s, you spend the rest of your life repeating that pattern somewhere else. Maybe letting someone cross your boundaries here and there because they have that same aspect of attraction that she has or she had. So, but hey, man,
You're right.
that was very vulnerable of you to share that.
It happened, and I'm at a point I could talk about it. I grew from it, learned from it. It happened. It happened. What I'm supposed to say it didn't, it did. So, and like you said,
Don't
and
worry,
you are absolutely right. But it started in my teens.
been
She
there.
was just the one for me.
I
She was just the
got
one.
too, so I just don't want you to feel like you're out here by yourself. I got too, so
I got
Yeah.
listen. We all got. You heard my story, man. You already know.
we got stories.
We'll do a whole live on that. Don't worry. We'll do a Patreon talk
Exactly.
or
That,
whatever. You
that
know what I'm
could be a
saying?
whole
Like
life.
we can do a whole Patreon talk on that behind the scenes and give that to people because that'll be a long one for the peeps. You know what I mean? That'll be a long one
Yeah.
for the peeps. But yeah, I know. I appreciate you sharing that trade because it. How
Somebody
was it?
asked me,
Sorry.
"Was the baby mine?" Let me go ahead and answer that fully.
Yes,
It got
please.
to the point, or it got to the point where I had to do a DNA test on my own to find out, and he wasn't. But he was already 5 or 6 by that point. So but since then I've always maintained a relationship with him because I was there in the beginning. I was, it's weird, we still in contact to this day. Just to be 100, last year um he had called me, and this was big. He had called me. I think his mom wanted to he had my last name. She wanted to go ahead and change his last name. He called me because he's like 16 now. He called me and asked me, was it okay to keep his name, keep my last name? So we had to have that man-to-man conversation about it. We already had that talk about what happened between me and his mom, and I try to keep it respectful because that's still his mother. Because she's not a bad mother. I'm not going to say that she is. She's a good mother to him. But I had to be real with him and listen. You're at an age now. We can have some real conversations. I'm gonna let you know the facts of what it is. What I did, what she did. This is what happened. You know what happened. He knows. He understands that. He's not biologically mine, but I'm still pops, and I treat him as such. So I have 2 boys. One that is biologically mine that I'm on top of all the time, and then I have his brother. My youngest son, sees him as his brother, and they talk constantly. They keep in contact with one another, and I tried to garner that relationship. You know, you never know what life deal you, but you got to be able to handle it when it does.
Bro,
It
you
shows
ain't
who
telling
you
no
are.
lies. You ain't telling
It
no
shows you who you
lies,
are.
bro. Trey, I
Hey,
appreciate you sharing that, bro.
I got a
We
life.
gonna
I
get
got
a full
stories
story.
for you.
Bro, we gonna get a whole story. Don't worry, bro. We're gonna get a whole story. We have to do definitely a Patreon video so we can do some behind the scene live because yeah, that's for the Discord. We gonna get that that conversation going at the end of this month, bro. So don't worry about that. We're gonna definitely talk about that, because I think we've all got some stories like that. I'm not gonna lie to you. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I can see the audience are endowed and are involved in the conversation as well. So thank you for sharing that, bro. I appreciate it. And again, you know, some brothers are out here. I told you, ladies, brothers are out here going through the ringers, you know, being good men. There are good men out there, ladies. You know what I'm saying? So if you ever wanted to hear one, you got one. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. All right, cool. Continue on. Obviously, handling rejection badly. Sean, when have you handled rejection badly?
I mean, like, what's badly?
Your definition of badly. You feel like you could have handled that better?
I could maybe a time when I'm trying to think of an instance where I handled it badly, because maybe it's bad because there's times that I can be nonchalant and callous, and so because I'm typically like, I'm like, if I just like, I'm sorry, I'm like trying to like gather my thoughts and think about it at the same time. But normally, you know, like how we have this running thing, right? If you don't want me, then let me be, right? You know, I don't want you, you know, if we're gonna do this, I want you to be attracted to me. So that's like my general legit attitude, right? So if a woman tells me off the back she's not interested, I'm not gonna go crazy, you know, because I rather have that information now and then I just move accordingly. You get what I'm saying? So I usually, my typical reaction is, especially when it's with a woman, I'm not gonna flip out. I'm not gonna be rude. I'm not gonna do anything that's harmful to her. But what I may do is be callous, you know, which is not always a good way to handle things, because it's still a wall, right? You're still being cold, you're being disconnected. So there's times that I know that I've done that and the person's feelings still got hurt. I probably wouldn't change it, because look, I don't want to waste time. Like, you know what? That did happen to me. I remember one time there was a girl that I really really liked. Oh my god. And I was probably like around the same age as Trey was, when it first started, like late teens, and I liked her so much. I mean, we had so much in common, and we were in college together, and all of this stuff. And if simping was a person, it was me. You know, it was like, you know, if she was around, I was giddy, you know, and I felt like we were in college. So it's like we had this commonality. So it was all good. So I think she might have liked me a little, but maybe not fully as much as I liked her, but she could definitely tell that I fully liked her, right? So it came to the point where, you know, I don't think she said it to me plainly, but I could see enough to know that she wasn't interested in me. And then we became friends. Later on, fast forward, a couple of years later, it came to my attention from one of her friends that we were mutual friends. And it was, you know, a girl, and she was like, I think she likes you. And so I kind of was a little, I said, you know, I was just kind of a jerk, you know, but like, you know, I was just kind of like, listen, if you like me, just say it. You know, I mean, we're friends now. There's nothing that's gonna come of it. If you like me, just say it. You know, and I was just kind of like rude, and like kind of callous with her, and she just kind of looked at me like with her head tilted to the side, and she was just shaking her head like, I cannot believe you. So yeah, I could think of that time. Like, so I just kind of let the initial rejection sit with me, and then I like kind of leveraged it at a time where I felt like she might have liked me back, but I knew it wasn't going anywhere, because I'm not spinning the block. We've been, you know, this was 2 years ago. So I think that could be a time that I think about. That makes sense.
It makes sense. I appreciate it. Thank you, Sean, for sharing that. I appreciate it. Corey, I don't know if you're there. Yeah.
You're asking when was the last time I
Let's say last time that one of you handled rejection badly.
oh, okay. For me, that was probably the late 1900s. Um, what happened was I approached this girl, and I was in high school. So the young lady I was into, she was taking this honors course, and I got into this honors course with the hopes of getting to know her better, the hopes of getting her to like me. Because we sit in the class, I get a seat next to her. We're good. So ended up getting into the class, right? Had no business being in that class, but I got ended up being in the class because I liked her. And I talked to her, and everything was cool. And then all of a sudden, when I did make the approach, say, would you like to be my girlfriend? She, I pretty much was in the friend zone. I had to let that conversation carry on a little too long, and I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. But trying to make sure that she liked me to the point of wanting to be with me cost me the actual possibility of a relationship, because that friend vibe, I gave too much of that at that time. So it was a lesson learned, but I was definitely disappointed for the fact that she did not want to be my girlfriend at the time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Corey. Johan, when have you ever handled rejection badly?
Um, I'm trying to think about I can't think of really like a more casual way, because in a casual way of dating, like if we've been dating or if I approach somebody, I generally don't take it personally. Um, that's not cockiness; it's just the way that I've always been with women. But I would say the one time that I took rejection badly um, was from my ex-wife. That was back in 2018. And it was essentially us getting to the point where we were separated. And then come to find out, man, I'm kind of sharing my business here, but come to find out she had gone public on Facebook with a new man. And I was in France when that happened. So by the time I landed in the US, then my phone was blowing up with the picture of her and the guy, while her Facebook still said that we were married. So essentially, I called her family, trying to reconcile, trying to fix everything. So I kind of like went on this like rant into like calling her dad, her brother, her best friend, like just like out of like emotional reaction, because literally I was getting on a plane on Christmas Day in France, Paris, flying to Houston, and by the time I had landed, my phone was blowing up with that. So for me, I was just focusing on myself while we were separated, and that's 2018 that it happened. I'm not holding any grudge against her. We made peace about it. But that was essentially like the rejection for somebody that you essentially like committed to the rest of your life with, and things happen, and you realize like, yo, I made a lifetime commitment. Let me figure out how to fix it. And you getting rejected, like listening and hearing a word like, you call your wife and she said, "Don't call me. My boyfriend is here." And you said, "Do you understand that you're talking to your husband?" You know? So, um, so when I say Trey, like you're not by yourself, like that's just me, being vulnerable. But again, that's something that happens a long time ago. The young lady and I are now on good terms. But it was just a moment where, I responded uh, in a very immature way. Um, Now, I don't want to go into details on like why are we separated. Um, that if I go there, I don't want to go in the rabbit hole of like bringing us back to like making women look a certain way. But I think you guys kind of get the picture on like what was going on there.
That's a Patreon discussion.
But
You said what?
how did you handle it though,
That's a
Johan?
Patreon discussion.
Did you get upset or angry, or like how did you deal with that experience? Because that's a tough one.
I think for me it was more of like you kind of like meet somebody that you never knew what that person was, because when you meet someone from day one, if they're attracted to you and you guys start dating, then they always liked you. You guys had arguments, you guys had fight, but you always reconcile throughout the relationship. So when you get married, you get engaged, you get married, and all these things, you guys always worked it out until that point where the other person is saying no. And I think that experience made me realize that I can love a woman the right way every day, and she can still wake up one day and say, I don't love you anymore. And there's nothing I can do to change that. So I didn't know that back then. And it was just like a moment for me where I just, like I said, I just lashed out. Like, when I mean by lashing out is like, calling her dad, having a long conversation with her dad, who I was very close to, and basically like telling him certain things, and him telling me like, oh, my daughter would never do things like that. So it was more of like me just being not myself in the way that I generally communicate. So I wasn't violent with her or anything like that. It was just like, we need to talk, like, let's get together and we need to talk. And that talk never happened because I live in a state where you can divorce somebody without appearing in court in front of a judge if you don't have any kids together, and we didn't have kids together. So it was a lot of like blocking me on social media, on Facebook, on all these things. And it really took one day when I was at my church, and I met this guy. He's no longer here. He really impacted my life. Sean, this guy was married for 52 years. And my pastor was like, hey, we got this gentleman here. He's battling with like divorce and separation right now. Would you talk to him? And he asked me, he's like, what have you been doing lately since you guys have been separated? I'm like, I've been praying, fasting, trying to get back with her and all these things. And you know what he told me? He said, one thing I've realized with after 50 years of being married is that sometimes the other person will always love the other one more. But when it gets to the point where you guys are apart and you're trying to hold on to it, God can never bless your hands if you're closed like this, holding on to whatever is hurting you. You got to open your hands up and let God bless you with whatever you got. And man, that word really like freed me right there, because I stopped trying to reach out to her mom. I stopped reaching out to her brother. I just started working on myself, and I was just pressing into my relationship with God. And I think that's kind of like what made me the man I am today. And that was in my late 20s, So yeah, I guess that's the best way. But to be honest, I've never like gone crazy over a girl that I just meet within like a couple months, or like at the store or at a bar. Like, I don't care about that, because for me, I'm like, if you're not for me, you're not for me, But that one was like my safe space, was basically, and we can talk more about it if we ever do the Patreon.
Well, we gonna do it.
But I was just that was a time where I was like, dang, what was I thinking? So
Yeah, I was going to ask you, was there any type of resentment you have after the fact, or did you hold any? But it sounds like after you met that gentleman, he told you what you said, you kind of, it put you in a place where.
Yeah, and I didn't really like my resentment was just more like asking God why. I was trying to figure out why, because back then I thought I was doing the right things, which I was kind of focused on my career and trying to be a provider for our household. But, in my background, where I come from, a husband, when you're providing, that's the best way of loving your woman. And that's something that I learned from my father. But what I did not learn is not every woman was my mom. So that would not be enough for her, So I had to really like learn a new way of loving a woman the right way, and not necessarily like always put the blame on what she did and all that. So I didn't really have resentment, because, I've learned that, the worst mistake that you make are the one that you don't learn from, right? So there were some mistake that I made, there were some mistake that she made, and I really had to like check myself and say, hey, I have a son from a previous relationship. He needs me. How do I move forward in my life? Because I have to be present for him. I can't give up on life because a woman decided to, part ways from my marriage. So I had to really like dig deep in myself and find purpose in loving my son and loving myself to really like get back to where I need to be. And it takes work. It takes work. And generally, I would say for the women who are listening, when you meet a man who's in that season, love him from afar, because that's not a person to talk to, because they're hurting right now. And men, we are really good at hiding it sometimes.
Johan. Sean, you open your mic. What do you want to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think this is such a legit top tier conversation, because I don't think we get to talk about often enough how as men we deal with heartbreak, how as men we deal with relationships when they end. And then, Johan, I can definitely identify with you in terms of dealing with the divorce. Although the circumstances of my divorce are very different, it's still that unifying, reality of realizing that somebody you thought you spend forever with, that you are no longer going to be with. And trade the same for you, like living through, like processing through the divorce. I think as much as people think like, oh, men, we're strong and da 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 da, which we are, right? And we can definitely do a good job of managing through things and making it. But the internal, there's nothing like when you thought you were going to spend forever with this person and you realize that that's not happening anymore, right? And it's like you're trying to rationalize it. And like as you were talking, Johan, it's like I can realize that experience and remember when I got to the point where I realized that my marriage was ending. And the hardest part for me, and it's not that I wish there was something that I could like touch and say this is it, so that I can laser like focus on that, because that pain is real too, but there was not that like glaring thing. So for me, I lived in like kind of this purgatory for a little place, because we still loved each other. We still wanted to be together, but we couldn't. We just couldn't, because we were totally not aligned on some very important things in our life, right? We didn't have the same goals. And forever was going to look very different for us. So I struggled with feeling like, because I was a believer, was it okay to divorce and end our marriage, right? Should I stay in it because there's really no legit reason? And just like you talked about, like I had to seek out the counsel of other men, and finally I went to my pastor, and just through a series of time, it wasn't like overnight, and it was like between my pastor and God, and we were just like, you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them.
Hey,
It
Sean.
has to come that time. So
Hey, Sean, let me ask you a question. And
yeah.
I think this is rhetorical, but it goes back to what this live was supposed to be about. Did you feel rejection in your own marriage?
I don't know. Maybe if I dug deeper, I don't know that it was rejection.
Yeah,
Maybe I
because I
I
had to
don't
think about that. I had to think
I
about it
don't
for my
I
own
don't know
self.
if
Like,
it was rejection. I don't know. There was times where I might have felt like betrayed,
Yeah.
because we had agreed and talked about certain things, and then those things weren't, those things didn't come into fruition, right? So I think like for me, that was a struggle. It didn't feel like rejection, and maybe it was, maybe if I explored it further, but no, it didn't feel like rejection. It just felt like you're not living up to your end of the bargain.
hey,
Like,
Johan, did you feel it? Did you
well,
did you
just
feel it?
like Corey said earlier in the live, it felt like I was not enough for what that person was looking for. And the reason why I'm glad I got the clarification from Corey is because once you realize that they don't see you as enough for them, it's easier for you to start your own healing process, because you cannot change the way that they view you. Only them can change the way that they view you. So, rejection for me, did I feel rejected? I felt rejected when things went left. I did not feel rejected when we were together, because in my mind, I was doing the right things. Now, when things started going left, yes, I felt rejected, because for me, I was like, when I wanted to talk, I'm like, yo, like, hello, it's me. Like, I'm your husband. Like, hello, like, we made this commitment. We paid for this wedding and like all this thing. And it hits you where you like one other person that you thought on earth will always say yes to you and always welcome you for the rest of your life is the only person who's telling you no that day. And that's something that you have to go to sleep with and wake up the next day and put one foot ahead of the other and move on with your life.
I guess the reason why I asked it, because I'm kind of on Sean's thought, it just hit me. I'm like, okay, I didn't think it was rejection in my marriage either, but the more I think on it, I'm like, yeah, I can see some elements of rejection within our marriage, and it put us in a bad spot. Like in my marriage, like we literally, I mean exactly what I said when I say this. It was a literal breakdown in communication. We were not talking to one another. And when you don't talk to one another, it allows different thoughts, headspaces to pop up. I don't know what you're thinking. She didn't know what I was thinking or feeling. Like we literally were not talking to one another. And there was other things going on, but that was affecting it as well. But that should have been something we should have been talking about. But I literally, for my eyes, I guess I didn't know how to deal with it because I never been with that. I've always been a good communicator, but we were not talking. And that was weird to me.
Trey, the other thing too is like you can be talking, but if you're communicating honestly with someone, talking sometimes is not necessarily enough. Because when you're arguing with someone, you're talking too, right? But you're not agreeing with the person. So talking is important, but talking about the right things and going in that right direction together is very important, because you can be talking to somebody and the other person is talking to you about walking out of your life and you trying to talk them into staying in your life, so it's like you can only communicate so far. And that's why I don't know where I got that term, but that's a term that in the last relationship I was in is something that we committed to each other to not compromise our emotional integrity, because you can be talking with someone but you are compromising your emotional integrity, which means that within the communication, you're not being honest with your emotion. But, upholding your emotional integrity is really saying the uncomfortable thing whenever it's uncomfortable, even if the other person is not going to like that. And then you guys got to work from there and move on, because the only way that you can live with someone for the rest of their life is by communicating in a very honest way, and communication sometimes ain't just enough. But like having the right mindset, like you started, is very important, because sometimes you may have the right person for you right there. But if your mind ain't right, you're feeding yourself the wrong thought, your communication is all false, because you are telling things about yourself or about the relationship that is not accurate. And those things can come from insecurities, trauma, pain, because when you're making decision based on your history, it's very hard to like move into where you're going, into your destiny. So like you really have to like have that communication, but also be able to like channel your thought when you are communicating, so you are actually accomplishing the same goal. I mean, that's what I've learned I have yet to like apply that to the level of being married again, but that's what I've learned, and that's the way I do my relationships now.
And Johan, you brought up such a good point earlier too, when you were talking about trying to stay in your marriage, right? And coming to that realization that you had to let it go. And I can't remember the name of the book, but I read this book, right? And it was about couples that were on the verge of divorce, right? And in the book, it said you have to be willing to let go. And sometimes in the letting go, there is a possibility for that other person to reconcile, and there could be a chance that that they come back to you and that it could work out. But if you continue to fight and be the person that is willing to accept, wants to hang on, they're never going to truly be back with you, and it's never going to be a whole relationship. You have to let it go. And I think for me, like, I had to process that. I had to be that person to say, I have to let go. Like, I have to stop fighting for this. Because if I keep fighting, I'm not dealing in a place of reality. And I think that's a hard place to get when you love somebody, is facing the reality that the relationship has ended before it actually has, right? Because there's a time when your relationship officially ends, and then there's a time before that when you know that it's over. And unfortunately, in a relation, two people never really get there at the same time. So there's always that struggle. And I think that's, for me, that was the most painful time in my divorce, is before we actually got to the divorce part of realizing that the relationship was over. But I'm still looking at her. We're still living together. We're still in the same house. But I'm realizing and reconciling that our relationship is over, and there's no turning back. So I think, like, that pain, like, it actually was better once we weren't in the same house. We sold our house, we were moving, and we were in our separate corners, because then I could just really grieve. But like, that living in it while you're dealing with the rationale, and then sometimes you trick yourself to say, oh, well, maybe this is a sign. Well, maybe we could still figure this out. Maybe that person can change a little. Maybe I can change. Maybe if I do this differently, and you start negotiating. I think that in that space, that's where people sometimes continue cycles and make bad decisions. So I think for us, especially those of us that really exited relationships that we should have been out of, right? It's kind of like, that's the pain, because we still love the person and we want it to be different. We want the outcome to be different, but it just isn't.
Yeah, you're right, Sean, because I went through that same exact scenario almost 1 year before me and my wife, ex-wife, talked about getting a divorce. I knew, yeah, I think this is a done deal. And I knew it because I was coming off for active duty. I was going to the reserve, so I had to get a regular job, and it was right before I got into my trucking career. Now, we've dealt with separation before, being deployed and stuff, good and badly. But for some reason, I knew when I took this job, okay, I already knew the job. I got family as truckers. I was like, I know what's going to happen. I'm not going to be home. This is going to be a hard test for our marriage that's already rocky. No communication. And I told her that. I said, hey, all right, this is what's going. I told her this is what's going to happen. I'm going to be out on the road. We're already not really communicating like we should. You know, this is going to make it harder. Her response was, hey, maybe it'll make the heart grow fonder, and it'll force us to try to communicate with each other more, and this and that and third. I'm like, okay. In my mind, I was like, well, this is the test. We're going to find out. We're going to find out what your level of commitment is, because I'm going to keep mine up. We're going to find out, where you really are. And a part of me to this day, yeah, we failed the test. By that next year, beginning of next year, we had to talk. Like, hey, I think we have reached, and she was the one that brought it up. It's funny because we was I'm home and either I'm sleeping in bed, she on the couch, or I'm on the couch and she in the bed. That's how bad it got. We just wasn't talking. And it finally got to the point, it was like, yo, you know, this can't go like this. It just can't. She had just got to that point. I already knew the year before that it was coming here. I was hoping, maybe, like Sean said, I was hoping maybe, maybe we can turn this around. I was hoping because I didn't want to go through divorce. Like, it's weird. I've had good examples of marriage in my family, and especially on my mom's side. Most of my aunts and uncles, they're all the youngest one is pushing a 32-year marriage by now. The oldest one did 50-year marriages. I had good examples of long relationship and marriages to look at. Like, you know what? This is what you do, and this is what you don't do. Try your best, but sometimes it just doesn't work.
And
but it was hard.
Sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No. You got a question?
No, I was just gonna say, and the thing about in the situation that you were, where essentially you and her were not speaking, I think that within that season, generally, that's where essentially there's a lot of thought process that is happening, and Trey, I don't know your belief system, but for me as a Christian, I always believe that we fix our community to the family, and the family is good through marriage. And the more marriage is under attack in today's day and age, the easier we have broken families. And if we have broken families, we have broken community, and we have broken nations. So because this union is so important, in the time that you guys were in silence and not talking to each other, there may have been girlfriends on her side giving her opinion based on what they know about you. There may have been people on your side giving you opinion what they know about her, and that's where the other things start really unraveling, because now what you guys are getting thought is from the outside and not from the inside. And the unfortunate part about this is when you are hurting, it is really hard to say, I'm going to pour more, because you are negative and you're trying to figure out how to come back to neutral and at least positive. But when you're hurting in a situation like that, you don't really can see those things, and you also got to understand, we do marriage differently than our parent did. My parents were married for 42 years. Literally, like one of the things that I was seeing growing up, I was like, man, when I get married, I don't want to have to deal with this, right? But now I'm understanding that's important. And then some of those things that were not necessarily important, I would not implement that in my marriage. So I think that now, because we do marriage differently than our parents, we also have to give each other grace when we try and we really want to make it work and it doesn't work. I want you to be able to give yourself some grace in everything that you've gone through, to be able to sustain and remain, like Cole just said, a good guy, right? Because a good guy is not perfect. A good guy is just a man who has good intention, right? And no matter what you've gone through, you're always looking at, the glass half full so far. And that's a good thing. And that's what we want. We don't want to change. We don't want those experiences to change who we are, because once you do that, we are all just walking around with wounds. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to add.
It's interesting. Someone I just saw asked the question, is longevity equivalent to healthy? I thought that was an interesting question, because it kind of speaking to what you had just said. Even though we saw examples of long marriages and whatnot, that was their marriages at a different time. Ours is different. But I will answer that question directly by saying this, and don't get bent out of shape and get crazy when I say it. But I do think people need to be careful of wanting a healthy marriage, because that could be a falsehood. All marriages go through ups and downs and tribulations. It's never going to be healthy 100% of the time. It's just not. Relationships not going to be healthy 100% of the time. You're going to go through something. If you are not going through something, you're not growing. I think people need to understand that. Be careful. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't care about the longevity. Blah, blah. I just want a healthy marriage. And everything's not going to be healthy for you. You try to have the best marriage you can. You work hard to have the best marriage you can. That's the only thing you can pray and hope for. But wanting just things to be healthy and perfect and this, it's not going to happen. It takes work. That's one thing. Divorces, marriages, everyone's going to agree on this. It takes work. And sometimes the work, the headaches, pain, you get on your nerves. I mean, half the time they're going to be on your nerves. I'm being nice. They're going to be on your nerves 80% of the time. It's just what it is. But this is a partner that you chose and that you want to cultivate. And you got to want to do it. You got to help it grow. The both of you. You can't be one-sided. And it's going to take sacrifices from both of you. What it is, But I hope I just think about that when I heard that question.
Yeah, I agree, and I think sometimes this scares folks away from marriage. And I keep seeing, like I've been seeing, like the word miserable. It's not necessarily miserable. If you're miserable, that's a different issue, right? But you're going to go through seasons in a marriage. I don't know anybody that's been married for an extended period of time, 10 years, or more, 5-10 years in that range plus, that you don't go through something. And the something doesn't have to be the end of the world, but you go through a season, you go through a period where you question. You might have a major disagreement. But if your core is the same, if you both are united on what is important, right? And you are you are aligned, then that's going to carry you through those tough times. And that expectation that, oh, whenever it goes, when there's a problem, that it's just going to work out because we love each other. No, that's not true. The vows are what they mean, for better or for worse. And that means the worst will come. So you need to anticipate that. Some people, it's a major health crisis. Some people, it's infidelity. Some people, it's a major difference, right? Now, some situations you do need to leave. You do need to leave, right? But some situations can be healed if both people are willing to work on it. And if there is a willingness to work on it, and you can work on it, and you can get through it, then that's what marriage is there for. And I think that our emotions can lead us down a path that can be very destructive. So we need to always check our emotions with reality, check our emotions with, is this 100%, right? Are you giving the other person the benefit of the doubt? Because when you don't do that, when you approach an argument, when you approach a scenario, and you start to build battle walls within your marriage, within your relationship, you're setting the foundation for a very contentious one. So I think like these are things that can be avoided, but sometimes they happen subtly. They start with, how you engage in your communication, with just simply being rude, being disrespectful because you think you're right? It starts with the insult because you feel insulted or your feelings were hurt. And then it just builds from there. So I think we just need to be really cautious about having boundaries, our expectations of what marriage looks like, and then working on it.
It's got deep. It's got deep and deedy. I like that. I like where it's gone to. Okay. I mean, since you guys are already here, whether, and I think kind of Trey might have asked this question a little bit, but I kind of want to refocus on it. Since you guys have all been married, were there moments, and I want to kind of hone on it specifically, that you felt rejected within the marriage? Because I just want to like hone in on those answers. Like, were there moments in your marriages where you felt rejected, and what was your response, or what did you do, or how did you feel in those moments where you felt like you might have been rejected within the marriage? And this is just, in general, throughout your course.
Did you want to go first, Johan?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
I would say for me, and that's, I had that question earlier. I'm really trying to think about that time, right? I can't really like pinpoint an opportunity, but I would say generally when I start seeing that I wasn't necessarily a part of your day, meaning, it could be in the evening, we having dinner together, we taking a walk after work, or we are, watching a movie together and actually having physical touch and conversation. But instead, what takes over is time with girlfriends, personal time at the gym, or things like that. Like that, essentially, for me as a man, I felt rejected, because then I was trying, right? I was trying to make things work, but at the same time, it was at a point where we never truly acknowledged the issue. We just kind of like were acting like everything was fine. And since I started traveling for work, I did not really have, we never really had the chance to sit down and have a conversation. Next thing I know, things are kind of going south from there. Again, don't want to share too much on this platform, but essentially for me, I've never really like had a situation where I felt like she was rejecting me, because, because the thing is, the only time I felt truly rejected was when the infidelity happened, or started happening, and then we separated. So I don't feel like I ever like saw it coming. So I wasn't really like paying attention to any form of like real rejection, but I could notice how I was no longer a big part of her day, while I was still making her a big part of my day.
I appreciate Johan sharing that. It's interesting, actually, and I wanted to just in touch that. I say it's interesting because, like, when I asked this question about did you ever feel rejected in a marriage, I'm not even talking about necessarily an extended period of time, but
Mm-hmm.
just even a moment, right? Like you said, obviously, let's say, for instance, you know, she might have, like you said, she might have gone to the gym, not thought about you, and you had plans or whatever, and that can be a moment. It's not necessarily an extended period of time, but it's just a moment. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
those kind of things there, because I think sometimes, and I think you guys do a wonderful job, by the way, as well, sharing, opening, and I think what you're also doing is repackaging how men are seen. I think oftentimes we're seen as robots, emotionless beings, and who don't hurt and don't feel. So I'm honoring also you guys sharing those thoughts as well. So yeah, same question to you, Sean. I mean, um, like, was there any ever like moment? Was there any time you ever felt like that? Do you know what I mean? Was there? It doesn't have to be a massive event. It's just general kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say isolated. So
Mm,
there's parts of like rejection where you feel isolated because you are, not part of it, and I'll explain. Right. So for mostly everybody knows, like I was when I was married, we were part of a blended family. My ex-wife was married previously and had two kids with her ex-husband, right? So I had stepkids, and for most of the time they both lived with us, and then for the entire time my stepdaughter lived with us, that we were together and married. So um I participated very actively in a lot of things, especially having to do with my stepdaughter, because she lived in our house. So she was there every day. Um, and so if it wasn't games, runs to school, taking her to parties when she was a teenager, like I was an active part of that. There were occasions that I could think about where, like, there was one time, and I remember, like, we were kind of going through a little bit of a rocky time, and she got an awards dinner at school, and I didn't find out till afterwards that I wasn't invited to go. And it just, I just kind of was like hurt. And my ex-wife and I, we were out to dinner. And it kind of slipped out in her conversation. Like, I think she was showing me pictures, and then she showed me a picture of the night. And I was like, I had known about it, but I just kind of like let it go. And then she showed me a picture, and I'm like, really? And she tried to like dismiss it and kind of like say like, well, you didn't need to go anyway. Like, kind of just be very dismissive. And in that minute, I was so angry. Like, I was super angry with her to say like, oh, you get to pick and choose the moments when I'm around. You get to pick and choose when I'm included, and you legit think it's okay. So for me, I felt, I guess, isolated, maybe rejected, but just more so like she just didn't care, right, in that moment. And we were able to talk about it afterwards, but like in the moment, it was so hurtful. I felt like I was just like non-existent. So yeah, that was a moment that, as we're talking, like just resonated with me, that I just kind of had to like heal from that, because that was painful.
Appreciate you sharing that, Sean. Trey?
Yo, hit me with the question again.
Just a moment in the marriage. Just want to just hear a moment in the marriage where you felt, rejected. If you ever felt that in the course of a marriage, or in the course of a marriage, you ever feel rejected? And that's something to be a major event. Just like it can be a
Yeah.
moment, literally, something happened.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of small, but it did. It wasn't affected. It did add to the issues. Um, I think she went on a short deployment. I was home. Um, we was corresponding. It's funny. The most corresponding we had was when we were on separate deployments, which is interesting. A lot of emails, a lot of phone calls when you can or whatnot. She was talking real spicy, like kind of said spicy. Ooh, when I get home, babe. I'm like, all right, cool. All right, we'll see. Yeah, I'm getting excited. Come home. And I remember trying to engage in some extracurricular activities, and it was kind of a shutdown. I was like, there's always like an excuse. What's going on here? Like, I'm your husband. You just came home. We got to do what husband and wife do. I got to lay something down. What we doing? Like, what's going on here? And it was a slight rejection. It was weird. Now it's funny. I never thought it should have affected it, but I kind of knew where the rejection was coming from, and it somewhat didn't have anything to do with me. At the time, her mother was living with us, so that was a whole situation. And I noticed, even from her own words, especially after we separated and got divorced, we had long talks and got back to a relationship and friendship. Like, okay, we got a kid. We need to talk about some things, and we actually had that chance, so that was good. But I think during that time, even she said it, when she was around her mother, she was becoming someone that even she didn't like, and it was more like her mother. So it was weird to see that, and I didn't know how to handle that myself. Like, what do you do with this? Like I'm seeing you change into someone else that I did not meet beforehand. and I'm not quite sure how to deal with it. You know, I try to talk to you about it, you get upset. You know, you want to vent about it, I'm listening. We know what the problem is. I know what a good solution might be, but you know, couldn't do anything about it at the time. She was there. This is what it is. It was weird, but yeah, there was a few times I got rejected sexually, especially when she came back that time. It was so weird. Came back, got in an argument with her mom, not even 20 minutes home, got into some smaller argument, and she turned off now. I could tell it. She's in a mood, turned off. I'm trying to rub on her booty. Leave me alone. I'm yeah, leave me alone. I'm like, okay, that's Sean, I know what I'm talking about. You're like, I already knew it. I was like, about to be one of them nights. Yeah.
Bro.
So it like smaller rejections like that, but those build up. But that wasn't the first time and the last time that happened. It steady built up. Like, okay. Like, yeah. But it was weird. It was funny. After we separated, she kind of dealt with her mom. I thought it was a little extreme myself, but that was hers. You know, she kicked the mom out and you know, pretty much got her into housing and whatnot, and I noticed a change in her afterwards. I was like, okay, this is more like the woman I married and fell in love with. You know, okay, you're getting back to you now. You know, I was happy for her for that. I genuinely was happy for her. You know, but I knew, you know, the questions come up. She asked it, can we reconcile this and that and third? I was already done by then. But, you know, I kind of felt like too much was said, too much has happened. And,
Gone too far.
you know, as fellas, we could forgive, but we ain't gonna forget.
Of course.
That shit real. You know, I ain't gonna forget. I can forgive a lot. I have forgiven a lot. I don't hold resentment too much, if anything at all. But I ain't gonna forget it. I'd be a fool to. You know, if you forgetting something, that means you could possibly allow it to happen to you again.
Yep.
Not about to do that. No. So
I hear
that was a conversation in a situation that we had to deal with.
That was an aspect of rejection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate you sharing that, Trey, as well, because that's never easy as well. We have to talk about that one day, Patreon as well, because I ain't no joke either, man. A lot of people go through that as well. So, a rejection, peace, and sex and marriage, yeah, that's a Patreon conversation, because that's real, and that might help a lot of people as well. You know what I mean? For people in that aspect and in that place as well. I guess obviously because we're going to be coming to a close soon as well. I think Johan, did you have a question, Johan? Earlier on, you were talking about obviously approaching the ladies earlier on. But I think you had a question, right? Have you ever approached a woman to see if you still got it? Yes. So let's deal with that question. We've got the last half an hour, and we can descend into that. Go for it, Cap. So you wanted to ask a question?
Call that doing a heat check.
Yeah, no, you know, we that was earlier when we were having the conversation about approaching women and being intimidated by women based on, you know, the vibe they had and all these things. And I asked you guys on a private chat, have you guys ever tried to approach women just to see that you still got it, in regardless of what she looked like, if whether it was, you know, a woman that has the confidence of the girl next door, or someone that has the confidence of a Beyonce of the world. So I was just wondering if that's something that you guys have ever done, just trying to like talk to a woman just to see if you still got it, and you didn't care about.
Well, preface that question. Are we doing this heat check while you're still in a relationship or something, or you just by yourself? What's the situation like
Let's
doing
go. Yeah, let's go. You're not in a relationship. How about that? You're not in
Yeah,
a
that might be easy.
relationship. You said what?
That might be easy. That might be easy. It might be a little easy. Oh, woo.
Or you just came
Oh,
out of a relationship. Let's say that.
oh, okay. All right. Just came out of a relationship. Well, that depends on the relationship. If it's a situation where you know what, I might need to take some time a little bit because that probably went through something a little rough. You probably really didn't love her. And you ain't trying to jump back into nothing. You know, you ain't 22 no more. You just like, all right, let me chill for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do a little heat check. See what's up. Might it depend on. Heck, you might talk to the girl down the hall, cross the street, flash a smile. You might even do something stupid and go through your phone and send a message to an old one. See what's up. Hey, what you doing? You know what I'm talking about. Hey,
I know
what's
what you're
going
talking
on?
about. Yeah.
I hate to say it, but it's always that one on the back burner. She know your situation. She respectful. She ain't about to,
Oh
what I'm
man.
saying, get out of pocket.
Oh,
But
Lord.
now,
Mm-hmm.
now, hey, what's going on with
Uh-huh.
you? Where your old girl at? What old girl? Oh, really? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? What about a
Yeah.
drink? Where at? My house. For real? Yeah. Come on, slide. Go ahead, slide on me. Slide on your boy.
I
You know what I'm
see.
saying?
Mad.
And then
What
slide
about,
on your boy.
what about yourself, Johan? You were mad, Trey. What about yourself, Johan? You ever experienced that situation?
For me, as far as like doing trying to check if I still gotta know. I think that for me that's kind of like ego driven,
Yeah, of
because men we love to feed our ego, and
course.
I've failed a lot in my life because I was feeding my ego. So
Absolutely.
I've learned how to identify whatever is coming from the ego of me and what is coming from um a growing boy inside of me who wants to become a man. So I haven't done that yet. That's why I was asking, because the level of conviction can be sometimes very um deep, with that. But once you like single, yeah, that's something. Like if you're single, you're not in a season of transition. um like you go for it and just do it. But I've yeah, it's something that's based on ego, in my opinion, because you just want to see if you can still got it. And women sometimes do it too with the way they present themselves. They want to see if they still a head turner, right? So that also comes from an ego. Josie G said, have you ever been afraid to approach your spouse about anything? um, I just wanted to answer that question quick, Kojo, if that's okay. Since we had that conversation, I think for us, or for me, approaching your spouse and having a conversation with them, you can be afraid of the level of distance that can create whatever you're talking to them about. So it's not necessarily that you're afraid of the person, but when you are in a state of distance where they don't see you as attractive as they did on the wedding day, or they don't have that respect for you right now because you guys are maybe arguing or beefing about something, and then you guys are getting back together or like making it up. Sometimes you can be afraid to come to your lady and say, hey, I'm gonna, can we do this, or like have a conversation about that, because if it wasn't resolved in your way, and this is why I say it's important to have your emotional integrity, and you making a deal that you did not want to make, you're going to circle back and trying to renegotiate that deal one way or the other, and you already know the answer because you already settled on a bad deal with her. And then when you're trying to come back and have this conversation, or even mention something that you feel like needs to be worked on, that fear comes in, because now you're like, okay, we already made some progress. We went from not talking with each other to going on dates. Now I'm going to bring this whole thing back again. It's going to set us back. That's not the season I'm in, or I no longer have that fear. But I know that that's something that I had at one point, because when you're trying to make things work, you just in your mind saying, we just, we just had a good day. Let me not ruin it, And now you're afraid of like going to her and talking to her about something, because then she's gonna come with, oh, you are controlling, oh, you are this, you're that. Because if the person's heart is not aligned to receive what you're coming with, it is very, very, very difficult for you to get the best outcome for the relationship. So I think that's where that fear comes from. The disposition of the heart of the person that you are in a relationship with.
Bars
I just thought it
galore.
was a good question to touch on.
No, bars galore. I like it, man. Good
Really
question.
good question for Sean to answer. Have any of us ever got hit with the controlling moniker?
Not me, but I just used that as an example.
Yeah.
Mm.
I never,
Okay.
I always thought it was weird, but I'm like, okay, controlling? No, not me. What are you talking about?
No, I just used that as an example because when you're in the zone where, like, I mean, you know what I'm talking about, Trey. Like, you live with someone, but you don't live with someone, and it gets to the point where like you barely tolerating each other, and if you're already going back to like revive everything that you guys disagreed on, it can blow up again, So, and then men, we value peace. So sometimes you don't even want to say anything just because you want to keep your peace, But I've
Yes.
learned, I've learned that from a Black woman. Actually, she told me one day. She said, son, silent doesn't always mean peace. So when us men, when we are not talking, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have peace. And that can say a lot about where we are in life.
Indeed,
Peace,
indeed.
peace. A woman can't bring you peace. No, I'm sorry. It's going to be a no. You might tolerate it for a while, but it's going to be a no after long.
All
You know,
right.
we can take a little conflict, but we ain't about to deal with the chaos. No,
Mm.
take a little conflict. The chaos.
Yeah, that's true. Here's another question.
Oh, sorry.
What was
Are you
that?
honest with your woman on what you need and what you want in order to get what you need? What?
So, are you honest with your women with your woman on what you need or what you want in order to get what you need out of the relationship? So, are you guys communicating, quote unquote, I guess the past, with the person in front of you who's in a relationship with you? Are you guys communicating enough so that you can actually get what you need out of the situation? Are men doing that? Are you doing that personally?
Player talk. It depends on the woman.
I was literally about to say that.
How do you
Depends on the
mean?
woman you talking to. I hate to say it like that, but I guess it's demon time. It depends on the woman. Some women you can, just like any other people in this world. There's some, if you're a man talking to a woman, there's some women that you just vibe with, and we can be completely honest with one another, and it's cool. But there's some women you talk to could be on the more sensitive side. You never know, but you can't say certain things to. She ain't gonna take it well. You know this. Food. You might be the same way. Some dudes, you could probably talk to them. They're gonna be cool about it. You talk to them about certain subjects. Heck, some of our own homeboys are like that. We could be real with one another, but you know which homeboys you can talk to, and then with homeboys you can. Yeah, I could talk to him, but yeah, I gotta be careful how I talk to him. You might be,
Mm.
you need to chill out. You need to chill out.
Indeed. Okay, Johan, what's your thoughts on this? Thank you.
I think Yeah, I think when Trey said it depends on the woman, I would say it definitely depends, because it depends also on the season of life that man is on. Because if that man is on player time, he's gonna tell those women whatever he wants. Now, if we're talking about serious relationship and wanting to build with that woman, yes, I am. Because again, I'm going back to the word emotional integrity. Because if you're not telling the woman what that you want to spend the rest of your life with, what you need and what you want out of a relationship, then you are handing her a job without no description. And it's really tough to have somebody in a position when they don't have a job description. So you have to hand them also the job description when they're applying for the job. So that's something that I've learned, to be honest with it. Now, the fear that we always have as men is because when we get that 9, Kojo, you know, that 9 that you've been looking for, and she finally goes on a date with you, that not that 10, not that 8, but you get that 1-9 that you just like, boy, if I can just get with that 1-1-1. And when she asks you, you make your answer very, 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 very complimentary to where she's at in life. And that's something us men we've done in the past. And that's where you compromise your emotional integrity. So let's say she is a high earning woman on her purpose and doesn't want a relationship, but she's that 9 that you always wanted. Now you're going to go in there and say, oh, I'm also on my purpose. I'm not looking to be married. When you were just looking at what the real cost of an engagement ring is if you ever meet a woman. So like emotional integrity is very important. So once you have that and you're showing up that way, you're always going to tell them, hey, this is what I need and this is what I want. This is how I feel when I'm supported in a relationship, but you have to get to the point where it's okay for you to lose the opportunity to be with that woman, to really be honest about your needs and your wants. If you're not ready to lose her and be honest with yourself, then you're going to shortstand yourself, and the real you is still going to show up one day.
Good points. Good points. No question. Let's see. Question is, I guess it's quite similar, but have you ever been afraid to approach your spouse about anything?
I think we went over that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. If you answer that one. Let's see. Do you think it makes it harder because of once to the choosing? Well, I think our questions are pretty much done. Let me see if there's anyone in the chat. Ones that I've saved. Let's see if there's any conversation in the chat.
I saw there was a good one, Coach. I don't know if we addressed that, and I might have missed it when I stepped away. But about, do men take the breakup of relationships harder?
Okay. Do you know what time that is? And I'll put it up on the screen.
It's at the 10:54 Eastern time. I think you started though. It's by Dorica.
Okay, I'll get that for you. Do you want to answer? But Dorica, you answer it, and then I'll bring it up for you, bro.
Okay. Yeah, no, interestingly enough, that was like an exchange that her and I were having, and I think that men do take rejection, not the rejection, but the ending of a relationship harder, especially if that man was in love with the woman, because I just think, how do I frame this? Like, and it's not to say women are better or anything like that, but women, it is more acceptable for women to release emotions that they feel, right? So a woman crying after a breakup is supported, is met with hugs, is met with love. Her being able to vent to others is more acceptable. I think the notion of men and how we deal with pain or how we deal with hurt or heartbreak, now I think spaces are opening up and it's a little more acceptable for us to be vulnerable and talk about the pain, but in so many instances, not enough of us see or understand or know how to healthily do that. So we internalize and we sit with it. So it just kind of like, and if you don't release it, it doesn't mean it disappears. It means it's inside of you. So it just festers inside. So that's why, and then we pontificate and think, because most men, our logic is like, how do we fix, how do we, like, where we try to like calculate and make it make sense. But when it comes to heart issues, in so many instances, there's not a logical, way that you can just kind of like compartmentalize. Okay, if P then Q. Sometimes it's just a sheer heartbreak. It's just a sheer emotion, and we don't have a space and a time to be able to do that. At least I had to learn, because a lot of times unmanaged emotions become anger. And for me, my issue was like, I wasn't somebody that was erratic or someone that was like outwardly explosive, but my mouth was reckless, right? So when I hurt, I can cut you deep, or I can be rude, I can be dismissive, right? But that was me not learning how to manage my emotions in the time. And I think like all of that to say, like, emotional regulation is not something as men that we're often taught how to do effectively. So it has to be learned in a healthy way. And I think sometimes the messaging on how we should handle and manage our emotions is not the healthiest ways of doing it. So we have to unlearn that and relearn the effective ways of handling our feelings.
I love what you just said, Sean.
Go for it, Johan. If you want to answer it, you can go for it.
Yeah, no, I think we take it harder because men, we're a builder. So, like, for example, Darika, if you're gonna meet a man who's pursuing you, I don't know if you're single or not, but that man is essentially gonna like already have plan ahead or like have a future for you guys. Like, he knows what he wants to build with you when someone is intentionally like pursuing you. And generally, what happened is when everything is going according to our plan, we are happy, we're great. But once, things start going left, we start feeling it harder because, you were the center of that plan. Like, we were hoping that things were going to work out with you in it. And now we have to really like cancel the picture of our life without you in that space, and I think that's when we think harder, because another part about it too is like love is a choice. And generally when we make that choice, we implement logical reason to fall in love. And sometimes it's hard for us to make sense of our logical thinking when things go wrong, because we're asking ourselves, I think I had everything figured out. The unfortunate thing is a man will always make his plan, but God is going to ordain anything. So we get stuck in the idea where we want to like lead and control the outcome or determine the outcome, but it doesn't happen that way. And when it doesn't happen that way, you start living in the pain of the lost opportunity of what could have been, and just missing someone that you truly love and were committed to spend the rest of your life with. Men have heartbreak too.
They really do be having heartbreak, man. I can't even lie to you. Us men be having some serious heartbreak, Trey, go for it. Give us a little quick 2 minutes sign, and I'm going to get Shaw to do benediction. Go for it.
I'll make it quicker. The quick answer is yes, we do tend to take it a little bit harder, because there's always been a stigmatization to us even expressing emotions. So most men don't even know how to deal with their emotions when they encounter them. That's a problem that we need to continually try to fix. To the doc and to Sandra is To both of y'all answers, yes, I wouldn't mind getting remarried again. It's not something I'm just going to jump into though, but I wouldn't mind getting remarried again. I'm not afraid of it. I value it. Always have, always will. Did I go to counseling afterwards? I went to counseling during and a little bit afterwards, to answer that question. So, yep, no fear here. I won't live in fear.
Love that. All right, boys, it's been a crazy, crazy good conversation. So many gems dropped, so many points of view brought to the table, and a really good interchange and balanced nutrient meal was given today as well. So thank you, boys, for sharing your hearts and being vulnerable, whilst at the same time just being able to just talk about some real stuff, man. Do you know what I mean? Real stuff. Sean, give us a benediction, and we're gonna be on our way.
All right. I wasn't here for some of it, but I was able to hear a good chunk and then join in, and I think, whenever brethren can come together and have good conversation and talk about life experiences, it's a blessing, right? And I think the biggest thing is we need a safe space to be able to do that. Just want to thank all the ladies in the comments for allowing us a safe space, because a safe space is a fertile ground for healthy dialogue. So when we think about rejection, when we think about communication, when we think about emotional regulation, it starts with what our foundation is. And I think one of the things we walked away learning is sometimes we have to start from the ground up. And if it doesn't work, we can tear it down and we can start from afresh. So having a healthy foundation to understanding that you're not going to be for everyone, but there's someone that you can be for. So for us brothers, for any brothers that are watching, rejection is sometimes your protection, and who is for you will be for you, and should be eagerly about you. So don't worry about the rejection. Move on to the next. No need to hurt, no need to lash out, but express yourself. Find a safe space with whom you can express the hurt that you felt. And then also, hopefully, we can understand that as men are vulnerable, men can be vulnerable, and we do feel pain. We ask for the ladies that you protect our hearts. When you see a man trying to communicate, when you see a man being vocal, we need your protection in that way, because there's no hurt like a woman can hurt a man. Know your power, but don't abuse your power. And that's the same for us, as we need to protect you, but we have to protect each other. And I'll turn it back to you, Coach.
Thank you very much, Sean. I appreciate it. Yeah, listen, it's been a good conversation. It's been deep, it's been insightful. I've even got my marking so that I can definitely post up these videos hopefully by tomorrow. But it was enthralling, and it's giving us ideas on what we can do on our Patreon, isn't it? So we've got some Patreon stories we'll be telling very soon as well. But honestly, audience, thank you so much, and we appreciate you for vibing with us. The ladies were on point, giving us great energy, great questions as well, and just being generally involved and listening, and just kind of just hearing our perspective. I appreciate that as well. So again, once more, thank you so much. And to my lovely panelists, Johan, Trey, Sean, Corey, I appreciate you. I know we'll have one or two more men next week as well. So listen, let's keep it going. Let's keep the good vibes going. Let's keep conversation going. Let's keep that deep thoughts going as well, where we're growing and learning, and just kind of just challenging our previous thought patterns as well. So honestly, thank you so much, and our audience are looking forward to more as well from us. So look, let's sign out on a beautiful little note for you guys. But we'll see you again very soon. Much love and appreciation.